All right. So how do you start scoring liquid Benadryl for the concoction?
Oh, I just get the liquid caps, and then I take a fingernail clipper and clip them off, and then I would just mix it in. You would have to put it directly
So if I go to the
into
store,
the dropper.
if I go to the store and I buy Benadryl liquid caps and I nail clip it off, I could get liquid Benadryl for myself.
Yeah, but it's super thick and it fucking burns. But I will tell you one cool story. This is before any addiction stuff. My mom was managing Island Records recording studio in Miami. This was probably 1995, and she called me and she was like,
How much did Andy Roy and the skate scene impact your drug using? I'm here with Jason Cabello from Toxicology. Did I say that right?
Toxicology. Yeah, it was the worst name for a podcast that we could
don't
think
say
of.
that.
Well, it's just because, I mean, if you try to spell it out, I have to spell it out every single time that I tell what it is.
How did it happen?
It was during COVID, and as you know, content was at a premium during COVID.
Yes.
So the
good old days.
The Dope Sick show had just come out, the Michael Keaton show.
Yes.
So at Recovery Unplugged, we did a live stream, like wrap up after each episode, and then it just evolved into a podcast, and then it got whittled down to Joseph, who you met, my co-host, and I being the hosts of it.
Me and Chris used to record in this room all the time when my dad would be home.
Oh, wow.
And I wouldn't want my dad to hear all the horrible things we said. So I'd tell him to close the door. And there's obviously...
Is this the soundproofing panels?
Yeah, the greetings cards are the soundproofing panels, exactly. And Jason also works at our new sponsor, Recovery Unplugged spot. And thank you for coming on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's great to be in New York City.
Yeah, we've been talking a bunch. It's interesting to talk a bunch and then meet.
It is.
You know, it's because we met on Toxicology. What were some of the other names that you guys thought about using?
I didn't have any say in it at that point, so it wasn't like it was mine to decide. No, I don't blame myself.
You can give yourself a pass.
What I do want to do is think of a cool acronym for it, though. So then when I have to spell it out, I could be like, two addicts, logically, whatever. So I could spell it out, because every time you have to say it, they're like, oh, toxicology, TOX. I'm like, no, it's actually TLK, psychology. And they're like, oh, talk psychology,
right?
No, so I have to go through that whole thing.
Well, Beastie Boys is some acronym.
Was it Bad Brain? Something to do with Bad Brains, wasn't it?
No, I don't think so.
No, maybe that was just the BB.
I wonder what the Beastie Boys acronym is. You don't know what it is? Let's see.
I don't.
And the Beastie Boys aren't even the Beastie Boys. They're just Beastie Boys. They don't even have
like Eagles.
Are the Eagles are really Eagles?
Yeah, there's no the in the Eagles.
Nobody says Eagles.
Nobody says Eagles.
Do people say Beastie Boys?
I think so.
I think they do, but nobody says Eagles. What's another band that is a not a plural but gets pluralized?
That's the only I didn't even know about Beastie Boys.
You didn't know about? You knew about Eagles.
I knew about Eagles.
There's another one. Oh, boys entering anarchistic states towards inner excellence.
That's right. They mentioned that on the documentary, I believe, right?
You could come up with some toxicology thing.
I could.
Trauma allows leftist killer. It doesn't.
Hey, whatever. As long as people remember it.
So, what the fuck, Jason? You're around music. You're around production. You're around skateboarding. You got a lot of tattoos.
Yeah.
Where did you grow up? What's your story?
I grew up in. I was born in Chicago, and then my whole family moved from Chicago to Miami with Doc McGee in tow. We all, my family worked in the music business.
Wait, how did Doc McGee get in tow?
I don't know if we were in tow or if Doc was in tow, but there was somebody in tow during the whole move. So I often, my mom corrected me on this recently, because I always say, like, you know, my parents worked for Doc McGee, and she was like, before that, Doc McGee worked for my stepfather. My stepfather, Barry Mraz, record producer, was Doc's first client. So Doc McGee used to work for my stepdad as his manager. Back in the early 70s in Chicago, they were working with bands like Styx, Ohio Players. I did some stuff with like T-Rex. My stepdad died when I was 14, so some of the stories got lost, unfortunately. But
And he was a great engineer or something.
Oh yeah.
Doc mentioned I had the pleasure of recording with Doc. I call him Dr. McGee. I asked him how he got the fucking name, and he's like, "That's what they named me. How do you think I got the name?" And because I was looking for like he had an alter ego, this and that. And Doc McGee is the legendary manager of Bon Jovi, Motley Crue, Kiss, among other people, and also had the notoriety of smuggling 100,000 pounds of weed and getting busted and having to do a huge concert in Moscow.
Allegedly. No, I'm just kidding.
Right. And so your mom worked for him and he worked for your dad and then he hired your mother.
So he worked for my stepfather managing him, and then my mom ended up managing his office in Miami.
And then you moved from Chicago to Miami.
And then we all moved from Chicago to Miami. And then that's where I grew up in North Miami Beach, Florida.
And when did you get into skating and music and drugs?
Drugs, I was a late bloomer with drugs. Very late bloomer with drugs. But I mean, music had always been around, and it was kind of...
Are you a musician?
I noodle. But my fiance would gladly tell you that I am not a musician. So music was always around, and it was kind of tough to rebel against my family with music, because I'd be like, you and I had talked that I'm an Anglophile and I always loved like, old English, anything English, but especially like punk rock stuff. So when I discovered some of that, I, came home and like, oi, I'm an anarchist now. And my stepfather's like, oh, cool. Here's a 7-inch from the Sex Pistols. And like, so there was no rebelling on that side. But I got very into hip hop, like the first generation of hip hop, probably like 1983 or so, and really into break dancing. And I think that's when I really started like listening to music myself and like getting my own tastes from it. And that evolved into punk rock. And then that sort of evolved into skating. So I started skateboarding in somewhere around 1987, 1988. And it's been the biggest constant in my life.
You still skate?
Yeah, still skate.
You any good?
No. But I love doing it.
Are you like a noodly skateboarder too?
No. I think I'm a better skateboarder than I am a musician. So I skate, and you'll find this with a lot of guys who are my age that never really made it pro, like curb skating is like back in style. So we'll go to the skate park in Austin where I live now, and I have a crew of guys that are all like, a lot of them are around my age, but a lot of them are like younger, like Ripper kids. But we just kind of gravitate at the skate park, but at the curb outside of the skate park, and just, relive our youth.
Yeah, I was such a horrible skateboarder. Like, I think I skateboarded more on my knees than on my feet. Like, I never got to the curb. In our little crew, none of us, only one of us came close to the curb.
Yeah.
My friend Dave could ollie a tiny bit, but the rest of us were just sad. Sad. We'd go down hills in Stuyvesant Town, which is like this little like kind of buildings on the east side of Manhattan. And there's this hill, and we would go down the hills and we would play Gladiator on our knees to see who could make it down the hill. That was our skateboarding career.
That's pretty cool though. I love it.
There was no curb slappies or anything. Right. It was sad. And I've had the privilege and pleasure of interviewing all these like pro skaters, and I'm like, it's not happening.
Yeah. Andy Roy is a fucking boss.
He was not impressed with my knees skating.
I could see.
He didn't even know what I was talking about. I tried to explain it to him. He's like, I don't know what you're talking about. But how much did Andy Roy and the skate scene impact your drug using?
I think it impacted like the brazenness of like drinking a lot and like smoking weed, and kind of wanted to like showboat it a little bit. But I was a late bloomer. I didn't touch any coke or any opiates till I was like 23. But I'd smoke a little bit of weed. I tried some psychedelics here and there.
But you weren't some horrible stoner in your early days or anything.
No.
Because I mean, skating obviously had no impact on my drug use at all, but music definitely did. Mm-hmm. Like, I definitely was attracted to drugs through music, through like the Beatles and then I guess just rock and roll, like psychedelics and kind of wanting to feel this idea that I thought the Beatles felt, and then like the Beatniks and
Right.
and the Grateful Dead and all this kind of psychedelic consciousness, and then like just in general, like you knew that musicians and artists took drugs, and I know that pushed me towards them. Like if you're like, you're not a real horrible stoner, you're not a horrible alcoholic, but you wind up becoming a horrible drug addict.
Yes.
So what was the ascension to that?
So, well, I'll start by saying, knowing who my parents worked for, you know, it wasn't like some fantasy that what rock stars were doing. Like I would go to the office and see what like these people were doing.
Who would
like,
you see?
The guys from Motley Crue, whenever they would come to town, or we would go backstage to some of the shows. Doc and his crew, my parents, like there was a lot of growing up. So it wasn't like this mysterious, like this is another world. Like it was in my parents' bedroom. So it wasn't like as attractive to me as like, oh, this is like some foreboding cool thing. It was like, that's my fucking parents do. You know.
So what would you see like as a kid? Like what kind of drug use?
Weed was everywhere. Like they did not hide
You
weed
saw
from
like,
me.
here's our 100,000 pounds over here. It's like, did you see like pallets full of weed and shit?
I don't know if I would have put two and two together. Like if I would have seen pallets, I probably would have, because we had this game called Potluck, which was like Monopoly, but you would sell like bales of it was just like Monopoly, except it was marijuana. So it was.
And your family, you grew up playing this game?
Yeah. We were.
I imagine at Doc McGee's house, he has like a pet elephant. So there's scale to see how much weed he has. Oh, here's my elephant. Oh, and that's my weed I'm shipping to wherever.
Right. So they would have pretty cool parties at my house, like pretty lavish parties. And then I just remember like after the parties, like my mom was just like out of commission for a couple of days afterwards. So it was like, I didn't know exactly what was happening, but I knew something was happening.
The debauchery was serious.
And then my birth father, my real father, was a great man.
Cabello.
Yes, Victor Cabello.
Mr. Cabello.
He was one of us as well. And he had passed away a few years ago from cancer, but died in active addiction. Just never got it. And I would spend summers with him in California. And you know, he was always sort of like down on his luck, and just once he hit like a certain point, it seems like, of his addiction, because he was extremely charming. I think he did like a lot of interior design work, and then it just seemed like he could never get the traction back going, and he was very bitter and always thought, especially when I started using, thought like I should learn from his mistakes. I think it's like a Mexican machismo thing. So I got to see that, and it was sort of sad.
So your dad was a Mexican interior designer and a drug addict?
Yeah.
I'm sure that's a rare combination.
I don't know.
What was he doing?
He was doing, I know he was doing cocaine, and he was doing heroin. So he would drive me around and go to like the hoods, and he would trade stuff. And then I was probably 5 or 6 years old, and I did that thing, you know, when you pretend that you're sleeping, so your parents will like carry you and put you in the car where you're like doing some stuff. And I woke up and I was like, oh, was that like cocaine that you were doing with the guy? And he got so fucking pissed off that I knew what cocaine was. Not that he was like taking me on these deals, but it was like he like called my mom and yelled at her about it and stuff. Like, how does he know what cocaine is?
He's like, I'm doing all this coke, and somehow Jason knows it. It's
exactly.
Coke. So what the fuck is going on?
Yeah, why does my son know what this is?
You know, that's classic, like not seeing his part.
Right, exactly. But
you know, he's getting in the way of me doing coke, but he knows what it is. And so what does your mother say?
I don't know what the conversation between the two of them were, but I can imagine my mom's kind of like, you know, a tough little lady from Chicago, and just probably like telling him like, that's not the fucking problem. Like, you know. Like,
Right. So both sides, your mom is at like, I'm imagining like Scarface meets like heavy metal whatever movie. Like I'm imagining a lot of white outfits, coke everywhere,
Very
spandex, the whole thing.
Looked a lot, yeah.
Like Scarface meets Hot Tub Time Machine or something.
Right. It looked like Miami Vice, like the way our house looked in Miami, and like the people that were hanging out there. It was.
And you're going back and forth between that and your fucking coke and heroin addicted interior design Mexican dad in LA.
Yeah, I would just spend summers with him out there.
You had no chance.
I had no chance. and you would think that, you know, all of that I saw would like deter me from it. And I thought so too. Like I was the guy, like if I had a friend who I heard was doing a little, like would experiment with coke or anything further than that ecstasy, I'd be like, are you a fucking idiot?
Right.
You know?
Don't you know what that'll do to you?
And then once I was 23 and I tried it, I was just like, oh shit, I fucking get it.
That's really interesting. I remember, you know, Danny Trejo.
Yeah, of course.
His son, Gilbert Trejo, has been on the show. I don't remember, one of them had said that because Gilbert was so around Danny and Danny's recovery, that the first time he smoked pot, Gilbert, he thought he had relapsed because he had been around recovery so much. And you're around addiction so much that you're like, I'm not doing drugs. I mean, you drank a little, you smoked a little, but you're like, I'm not going full on. And you're a fucking idiot if you do. But then, so how did that change at 23? Like, can you remember?
Oh, yeah. I remember the early days vividly because I started working in clubs when I was pretty young.
In Florida.
So I would sneak into a lot of clubs out there. And then one of the managers who I'm still really good friends with, his name is Bill Howard. It was a club called The Edge in Fort Lauderdale. He was just like, you're always like sneaking in and stuff like that. Why don't I just give you a job? You could work here, help me keep the other people from sneaking in. So I started working at nightclubs at a pretty young age. Another place, drugs are everywhere, you know, no big deal. Just wasn't for me. So I started getting very involved in like the party scene, going to a bunch of different clubs and hanging out. And then, you know, one night we were at it was like a Britpop night in Miami, go figure. All these girls came from Miami and a bunch of us went into the bathroom and they took some coke out and I was just like, fuck it, you know? And I didn't do too much like that night, but I just remember feeling like, oh yeah, I could talk a little bit better now. I'm a little bit more outgoing because I was a pretty social guy. You know, I am a pretty social guy. So it was just like making it a little bit more so.
Well, you had done so well making it to 23, being in this scene, and it was just a couple of like hot Britpop fans that pushed you over the edge.
It was just, and it wasn't even that. It wasn't even like, oh, I want to get to know these girls. It was just like a bunch of my friends and a bunch of girls were just like, oh, hey, we're gonna go over here. So I was just like, oh, okay, you know. And then I did it, and then kept on doing it. It seemed like it was a very short amount of time before it was like an every weekend thing.
How bad was your dad? Like, what were you really watching with your dad's drug addiction?
With my dad, it was more so, to what I know, is like his life just became unmanageable. And, you know, he's always jumping around from apartment to apartment or going back to live with his mom. Or I remember one time we went to go to like whatever the store was. It was like a Best Buy, right? Like a big box store that had washers, dryers, TVs, refrigerators. And he got denied credit for like a washing machine or a refrigerator. And he just looked, because I was with him, and he just looked so ashamed. And seeing that, just like, because he was a very handsome guy, very, you know, very social, always did really well. And when things weren't working out for him, I could see the shame and embarrassment that he had.
And so you saw he had lack of choices, but you didn't see him all strung out or anything.
No. I mean, there were times that he would send me to like stay at my friend's house, and then he would like go to the hospital. And now I'm kind of like, oh, he probably went to try to get some, you know, Dilaudid or something like that because he was dope sick, you know.
But you never saw him sick. You never saw him like running to the methadone clinic or running to cop.
Oh, we would go to the methadone clinic all the time. I remember as a kid, and I didn't know what it was. He would go run in and then come and then spit it out into like a little Tupperware cup, like I had no idea
And
what
then he
it
would
was.
sell it.
I don't know what he did with it, but
Of course he sold it.
Yeah, why not? Yeah, so he would spit them into little styrofoam cups. He would have me pee in the cups for him sometimes, and
it's crazy when you mention it. All I can think about is what methadone tastes like. Like that's the taste that's my reaction to your dad, because I'm imagining buying your father's spit back methadone,
right,
and being grateful to do it.
Oh my God, I would have fucking loved it. I would have told him that, somebody, they didn't even need to put it in the Tupperware, just like a baby bird, just
spit in my
right
mouth.
into my
That's
mouth.
horrible. That's horrible. So you're 23. You're using coke on the weekends.
Right.
You're kind of like arriving into Florida nightlife.
Yeah.
How's your dad in that time period?
He is still, living in some crappy room above somebody's house in Chicago. He moves back to Chicago now, but he did hook me up with a really cool job. His wife worked for this company. They did like infrared testing where you'd take an infrared camera and you would look at electrical boxes and robotics. All of a sudden they want me to move to Atlanta, and then they're going to fly me around. So I'm like, I have this job now where I'm traveling. I'm going all around the country, and I'm dating this girl who is, only reason that we were dating is because her sister was a dealer. And then she helped me move to Atlanta and then never moved out. So she came up there, but she would get stuff delivered to the house. So I was only home at the weekends at this time.
What kind of stuff did this dealer deal?
It was just cocaine at the time.
And did you fall in love with coke? I
liked cocaine quite a bit. Yeah, I did. It was, it got to the point where I didn't feel like I had a proper weekend unless I had some coke. And then I would get some some 5 milligram perks here and there.
Just to come off the coke?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I enjoyed them, but it wasn't like, it was just like the warm bellied fuzzy feeling you kind of get. That all goes to shit. If anybody who knows me from Atlanta, my Atlanta days, I was just a fucking drunk, coked out asshole. God, I was such a dick.
How bad?
I don't know. I guess because of the job and everything, I was a little cocky and,
Did it pay well, the infrared cameraman job?
I mean, it paid better money than I had ever made, but knowing what it, with all the travel and everything like that, it paid okay.
And it was cool to travel. And
it was cool to travel.
You gave up your nightclub thing.
Yeah, I gave up the nightclub thing for the time being. And then that job went away.
How did the job end, though?
It was just, they were, it was because of them. It was like they were. I probably did my part too, but
right. I'm sure it wasn't on you.
Yeah,
you were just a 24-year-old coke fiend. I'm sure it was the infrared camera company.
But I mean,
they're nefarious for fucking over cokeheads in the early 20s.
But I mean, nothing ever I wasn't like, oh, I'm gonna go sell this fucking camera equipment or trade in the fucking airfare. No, I was doing. I probably wasn't the best employee, but I wasn't. I wasn't terrible.
So what happens?
So I moved back to Florida. I start working in restaurants, start going to, get back involved in the club scene. And then I get my first strong opiate, which was, I'd say, probably like a narco, like the 7.5 or like a 10 milligram perk or something like that.
What was the situation? And when did you get your first tattoos?
Oh God, I got my first tattoo. I was like 14 when I got my first tattoo because I was, I was like in the punk hardcore scene and shit. I was like I wasn't at all like a tough guy, but a lot of my friends were tough guys, and I was kind of like the little mascot kid.
What was the first one?
The first one, it was a dragon on my chest, which is, you could barely see it now through all the hair, but yeah, it was
gigantic.
It's a pretty big one, yeah, because my mom's super cool, and back then you could sign like a permission slip or something, and like signed a piece of paper that said it's okay that my 14-year-old son gets a tattoo, and I like bring it into like the biker and shit, and he's like, you want this little thing? No, let me give you a big one. So he hooked me up with a big fucking chest
and
piece.
Your mom was like, cool?
Yeah, she's, my mom's pretty liberal.
Here's my like fucking permission slip.
Yeah, exactly.
I want the biggest dragon you can put on my chest.
Pretty much, yeah.
All right, so you're working in a restaurant. And Norco, where does it come from?
Just some friends of mine that, let me just think if I could paint the picture from the day. So my friend Rick, he was like, he grew weed and would, we could drink at his house, listen to music. Everything was centered around music. We would just go and listen to records. And there was this guy there. I don't remember his name, but I had never seen someone drink and smoke so much weed. So he would roll a joint and then put hash oil on it, smoke the entire joint, take a pill, and then drink a Guinness, and then repeat all night. And then he would kept on handing me the joint. I'd be like, no. He'd give me a Guinness. I would take the Guinness. And then he was like, oh, do you want one of these? And it was
the narco.
It was the narco or a 10 milligram perk, whatever it was. And we didn't take it right away. But then we were going back to stay at my friend Joel's house. And right before we got in the car, I was like, oh, fuck it. I'm going to take it. On that ride home, I had the epiphany, you know? This is how I want to feel every single day for the rest of my life. And I knew I was in trouble.
Isn't that the most annoying epiphany ever? It's like when it hits you, it's like, oh man, it's
I'm
like,
done.
Yeah, this feels, it's like a cheat code
It is.
for how
That's
you're
exactly what it
supposed to feel. And it's funny because like recovery is like unlearning the cheat code. It's like forgetting it. It's trying
or
to
it's like
forget
playing
it.
the game all the way through without the cheat code.
Right. But it's like, I feel like I had this hernia surgery and I got oxys, like 5 milligram oxys for the hernia surgery. And I felt that feeling again.
When was this?
This was a couple months ago.
Oh shit.
And I felt that feeling again. You know, I wasn't prepared to sacrifice my whole life
Right.
for that feeling, but it's such a great feeling. It's like, especially like before there are consequences, you know, when you're a kid in a restaurant with some horrible addict alcoholic and you'll have a beer, you're not smoking the hash with the hash oil, and you'll take the Norco and be like, oh my God, this is how I want to feel. But like
Right.
the real consequences are still so far away.
Yeah, exactly.
And when you're listening to all that music, like, is there a fantasy about producing music and you're around the music industry? Like, what's your relationship with music at that point?
It's so I started like hosting some parties back in Miami and like doing some DJing, but I wasn't like
what were the parties like?
I guess for a lack of a better word, it was sort of like it was sort of like what was going on in Williamsburg out here in the early 2000s, but over in Miami. So, you know, a little bit different, but the same sort of scene, sort of like indie rock turned hipster kind of thing. I don't know exactly what you call it. So it was going back and listening to a lot of old stuff. Like if I was DJing, it'd be called like open format, so you could play anything,
right?
You know, but the stuff that I was playing a lot, like bands like Enon, if you ever heard stuff like that,
I might have.
Sort of like dance punk, sort of. I guess a lot of people were playing the Strokes back then,
right?
At these clubs, and
right? This kind of like throwback
LCD,
party,
like
rock.
the early
Yeah.
DFA record stuff,
right? So how soon are you like, what the fuck is this pill?
Oh, immediately, and then my grandmother had some, so I would go to my grandmother's.
How'd you know she had them?
My mom told me, because I told my mom, like, oh, I introduced my mom's extreme, like, very liberal. Same lady that gave me the permission slip for the tattoo when I was 14.
Yes.
So I was like, yeah, I got these pills, and they were like pain pills. I fucking loved them. And she was like, oh, grandma has those, you know, so I could get you a couple here and there.
Your mom said that?
Yeah. Well, me and my mom would, we never did coke or anything together, but my mom would give me some pills. I probably never gave her pills because I could never spare.
Have you ever smoked one?
No. You should shoot this, my darling
with
child.
Some lemon juice.
Yeah.
We can do. You're not
no,
doing
nothing like that. So my mom was a little bit naive to how bad my issue was. So
of course she was. She's like, did she call her grandma? Did she like, oh, grandma's got some Norcos?
No, but she would say like, I get those from my mom sometimes. So, and my mom would go to my grandmother's house and be like, oh, you know, 'cause my mom has some back issues. So I'm sure she'd be like, hey, can I get a couple of pills for my back? But when she tells me that, I don't think, you know, I jump fences. So when she tells me that, I'm like, okay, so I could go to grandma's house, get her out of the kitchen, and then just take handfuls of them.
Where does grandma keep these pills?
Right in the kitchen. So it was just a little like, not an old person's home, but it was a little
like a community,
like a little senior building in Miami Beach.
Sure.
And you'd walk in and there was the little kitchen right to the left, and then her little dining room table right to the right, and she would keep them right there.
And a candy dish on the table?
Pretty much. That's what I saw it as. And then her phone was in her bedroom, so I would always go in there. I had my little system. I'd go into her room. I'd call my mom and be like, Grandma, Mom wants to talk to you for a minute. And the second she got on, I would just run out there, open the big jar of 5 milligram Percocets and grab as many as I could fit in my hand.
I'm stealing perks from Grandma.
No, but she knew.
I need to put you on the phone.
Talk to her for at least 50 seconds.
Hi, Mom. How you doing? Jason, are you? That's crazy. See, I blame my father for my heroin addiction on the show all the time.
I've heard that.
And he never connected me with like Grandma Pearl's secret stash of fucking Dilaudid. I was always on my own with this stuff. But your mom opened the door.
My mom sort of opened the door for that.
So then what? So now you have a source.
I have a source for little bits here and there. But that wasn't enough.
No.
And I'm living in South Florida. So this is early 2000s. I start taking the 5 milligrams, the 10 milligrams, taking more and more. You know how that goes. I need more and more. And then this guy who I was waiting tables with, he would give me pills every now and then. And then I kept on getting more and more and more. And sort of like the Artie Lang story, but he was like, instead of doing heroin, he was like, I have these 30 milligram ones. If you're taking a few 10 milligram ones at a time, you should really take these little fucking blue ones. And this is South Florida, early 2000s. So the pill mills were just starting to open up.
Right.
And at that point, I think you can get like a 30 milligram oxycodone for between $3 and $5.
Right. And how much pills did your grandma have?
She had like the big, she
had like chronic pain or something.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, I guess so. But she had like the big jar of them. Like, I don't know how many were in there, but yeah, I remember it was like the biggest pill bottle I'd ever seen. And it was like filled with them.
And you knew you couldn't take all of your grandma's medicine.
Yes, I did.
So you found another source, and then you're basically plugged in with one of the most robust sources of painkillers in the 21st century.
Absolutely. And it was, and I think I was a little bit naive too. And, at first I would only swallow them. I wouldn't snort them. That was, crossing a line. And then all of a sudden I start snorting them.
When's the first time you snort them?
I don't remember exactly, but the same guy who I was buying them off of, I would go to his house and, sometimes he'd be in a really good mood. Sometimes he'd be in a real shitty mood, like a lot of opiate addicts are. And one time he was just, if I remember correctly, he just took like a half of one and was like, oh, here, take a bump. And I was like, fuck it. I guess I'll do it.
And it hits you much quicker and much more directly.
Yeah, that's what I discovered.
So does your mom know you found the second source?
She's noticing that things are different. My personality's changing a little bit. My restaurant job was, I hated working at the restaurants at first. I would just go to like basically have a job. I didn't care. I would let people pick up my tables all the time and shit like that. I wasn't at the point where I was like hustling yet.
You were not the hustler.
No, not at that point. I became one later, but at that point I was not. I was more of just it was like a social thing for me,
And how long does it take to become dependent?
I'd say about a year and a half to where I was not feeling right if I wasn't getting them, but it wasn't like the sickness yet. It was
a year and a half.
Yeah.
And break it down. You show up.
So my first time at a pain management clinic?
First time, regular time, okay. What has to happen?
So I'm working in a phone room because it gets to the point now where I'm like, I'm not as employable in the restaurants anymore. I'm needing the pills more and more.
Wait, what's a phone room?
Like a call center?
So wait, hold up. How does that happen? Like what does it look like? Where did you make any mistakes? Are there any bad stories in there? And also I want you to do this, Jason. As you take us back, if any horrible story pops into your head, you have to tell it.
Okay, well, there's a lot of horrible stories that happen after
Yes.
this
Okay.
time.
I just want to.
But yeah, I got some good ones. The nightlife is what I want to maintain more than like my job, you know. So the art scene's really growing in Miami, and I have a lot of friends who are like in the art world. Art Basel would come to town, and you know, I'd middleman getting drugs for like the artists when they'd come into town. And it was like extremely cool. You know, these are fucking cool people. They're coming down doing cool shit. I'm partying with some, you know, I'm going to these great parties and it's a lot of fucking fun. And, you know, people want to be around me. I have and I could get them. But then
It's classic I have arrived shit.
it is, but I'm not doing anything worth a damn
In the scene.
during the week. You
Right.
know, that's my only, and I didn't realize it at the time. So, you know, like I would try to like connect with people during the week and be like, hey, what are you doing? And nobody would fucking call me back until it was like Friday night. And then it'd be like, oh, hey, are you going to be around? I'm like, yeah, actually I am.
So what's that about?
I just do, you know, I was just middlemaning. You know, I wasn't even.
Because nobody needed anything until the weekend, you mean?
Right, exactly. These are normal people who are leading productive lives who like to fucking party on the weekend. And I'm already going there and I could get shit. And I'm not putting two and two together that I could really make some money doing this. So I'm just bringing stuff for people, charging them what I'm being charged.
Was it oxys or Norcos or
a lot
perks?
a lot of coke.
Where would you get the coke?
pills?
Off?
People who I had met in the restaurant business, line cooks. Not saying that every single line cook is a
Coke dealer?
coke dealer.
Is every single line cook in South Florida also a coke dealer?
No, but they probably know. They could probably hook you up with one.
Okay, keep at Katz's. There's, I mean, whatever. I work at Katz's, and
Right.
I wouldn't. I don't know if I would say it if there was, but I don't. I've never seen coke. Never.
No.
Never. I mean, everyone smokes weed there, but I've never seen a hard at Katz's.
Yeah. But that seems like a good kind of place that everybody takes care of each other, and it's not like, you know, that would be bringing something in that would
hurt the
hurt the
community. But whereas like most every restaurant person I've ever spoken to, it's like the backbone of the industry.
Yeah.
And I never experienced that. And I worked at a bunch of restaurants. I think I wasn't cool enough in other restaurants, and in this one there's no fucking
right.
So every line cook in South Florida is also a coke dealer.
That's not what I said, but
and you're and Art Basel is starting, and you're like, this is fucking fresh, and you're like showing how much coke would you bring?
It would be by order. I wasn't bringing extra, you know, because I was friends with somebody who was curating some shows, and you know, it was one of those things. If somebody was looking, they would give them my number.
And maybe you get a few grams or something for free.
I would just party with them.
Right.
You know what I mean? It was usually like, I wasn't putting that together like, oh, I can make a fucking living doing this. I wanted to be part of it. So I wasn't trying to, you know, pinch until things started getting worse. And then it was like more closer friends of mine. And then like, I'd be like, I'll go get it. And then we split it and I'd bring it back. And they'd be like, this is all you got, really? I'm like, oh, fucking no. You know?
So how does it start getting to there?
Pills start. I'm needing more and more pills, right? And then I meet this kid who's kind of a fucking dweeb, and I didn't really like him that much, but he was a nice enough kid. I wouldn't say like I hated him, but he was just annoying.
Mm-hmm.
And then he came back here to New York and then called me and was like, oh, dude, like, it's so hard to get blues out here. Do you think if like you go meet up with my mom and you could get me like $300 worth of pills and just mail them to me? And I'm like, yeah, okay. And then as I'm after I get the money and I'm pick them up and see how many that are there, I'm just like, I'm not going to mail this. I'm fucking keeping them. And then the kid would start calling me and be like, oh, did you mail them? I'm like, yeah, dude, I don't know what happened. I went as far as, and this is before, you know, camera phones and all that, but I had a little like disposable camera and I took a picture of like the fake envelope that I was going to send him just in case like it came up. So I was crossing, you know.
Wait, did he give you the money?
Yeah, I met with his mom and his mom gave me like $300 and
his mom and your mom probably had the same parenting class.
They did. They did. The buy your kid and give him permission slips for tattoos class.
Exactly. If he has a bigger dragon on his chest.
Right.
But so you steal this kid and you're starting to become a drug addict.
I'm starting to become a drug addict. And at work, the same vegan restaurant. I loved working there. people didn't want to work with me anymore. Like I was, drinking all the time on the job, fucking up. Like, because at first it was kind of like I was like the fucking knucklehead little brother, like people like, oh, it's fucking Jason. He took too many pills. Let's cover for him.
It's cute.
It's cute. And then it wasn't cute anymore because everybody's having to do a ton of work for me. And I'm skipping out, not doing my side work and just being a fucking, total self-centered piece of shit. And eventually I get fired from there. And then I start working in call centers, which is just a place that you could essentially go to work at,
Wasted,
read a script, make some money. They'll give you cash. And then I was calling somebody looking for pills. And then somebody was like, there's a fucking doctor on the second floor here. Just go there and get a fucking,
sounds so convenient.
It really was. And then so I go down to this doctor and this dude is fucking barred out of his gourd.
The doctor.
And he is just like eyes fucking shut. And I told him what was wrong with me. Like I had an old ankle injury or something. And I told him what's wrong with me. And he's like, I'm not going to give you anything good. And I'm just like, I'm just looking to relieve my pain, doctor. How dare you?
Right.
So he gives me a jar of like 10 milligram Percocets. And
that's not good.
Yeah, that was fine for me because I could trade them. And then he was like, come back next week. And then he gave me good stuff. And then
hold on, he says, come back next week.
Yeah.
And he gives you the win.
That was my my trial period.
What do you think that is about? Like, why doesn't he give it to you the first time?
I don't know. Maybe it was something like that.
He doesn't trust you, or maybe he didn't have it then.
No, I think he had it.
So why does he wait a week?
Maybe it was his way of like, because maybe if he didn't give me the good stuff that day, like if somebody was, I don't know, a fucking real addict, they would just go elsewhere and do it. And I have no idea what the logic behind it was.
So what was the good stuff?
The oxys, 30 milligram oxys.
And are they cheap?
Yeah.
How cheap?
God, I don't even remember what I would pay from the pharmacy. But I mean, if you're thinking street prices are $5 at the time. So, I mean, I couldn't imagine I was paying more than like $100 for a big fucking bottle of them.
That's crazy.
Yeah. And then the doctor, I start, I'm good with like making friends with people. So I start talking to the doctor and I'm like, hey man, I got hookups to like all these clubs and stuff like that. So I start getting the doctor into these clubs with some of his friends. And then he starts writing me fucking, I'll go in and he'll be like, it's hurricane season. I have to write you hurricane supply. So here's an extra, and then give me like extra jars of fucking
hurricane season in pill mill country.
Yeah, baby.
Was that a big thing?
For this doctor, it was. And I had never talked to anybody else who had told me about that, but this guy would just every single time, and then he'd forget everything. So I'd be like, oh, hey man, is there any way I can get like hurricane supply? And he'd be like, yes, absolutely.
I mean, how are you so sure he was all benzoed out?
Oh my God, you could just see it. He was like, he was nodding, but not like the opiate nod.
Right.
It was just like the fucking
void,
nobody's home kind of thing.
I love that. I love that feeling.
And like the fucking 5-second blink where it's just like,
did you ever get benzoed out as well?
No, I never really cared too much for those.
So you love the opiates.
Love the opiates.
And were you still doing coke at the time too?
Yeah, if I could get it, because it was one of those things where I wasn't, the opiates were the only thing that I really, really cared about, but the coke would be a bonus.
And would you eat them? Would you sniff them? Would you shoot them?
I'm snorting them at this time.
Right.
This is like 2008, probably 2000. Yeah, let's say 2008. And then, now it's coming to the time where I'm needing at least 5.
So your tolerance is shot.
Yeah. So I'm needing at least 5 to not be sick. I'm terrible with portioning out for myself too.
Who isn't?
Yeah.
What's the frequency of use at that point?
Every couple hours, I would try to take like a half of one and snort it, and then it's a little bit blurry. But then a friend of mine was like, "You're not getting as high, are you?" I was like, "No." I'm like, did you ever try shooting them? And I said, you could shoot these things? And then
what was the lesson?
That I wasn't getting high anymore, that I was just like, I remember just complaining about, it seems like I'm not getting high anymore, but I'm not sick when I take them. Like, it's keeping me from being sick, but it's like, I'm not enjoying them as much as I used to.
But did he give you a lesson on how to shoot the pills?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Was there lemon juice? Was it water? No time
just
release?
water.
No time release.
You didn't even need it with these, or at least, I don't know. Like
at that point,
like we were just like, we're not going to fucking light a pill. It's what you do in the movies for like fucking old heroin to get the toxins out or whatever. So for pills, like you would just crush them up in water and then put a little cotton in there.
And that's the whole thing.
That's the whole thing.
Because I imagine there's all this work with these pills and lemon juice.
Yeah, I didn't have time for
lime tincture and shit.
No, that came
nothing.
That's like William Burroughs stuff. Yeah, that's
no, William Burroughs. I don't think he had to deal with that. I think he was just fucking shooting heroin.
Yeah,
I don't think he was worried about time release on pills.
That's true.
I think.
You're talking about the time release.
Yeah.
Oh no, so these were the straight M's, that the water soluble ones.
Right.
No, but I had later on. I had gotten those, the ones that would gel, that you would use the nutmeg grinder.
Hold on, let's get there though.
Whatever, yeah.
So you're strung out. You're shooting.
Now I'm shooting
the M's.
The M's or the
Why are they
S's?
called the M's?
Because they had M's printed on them from the manufacturer.
What was the M for?
Oh, I forgot.
I never got to do these pills.
Yeah.
Like I didn't have them here. I think they were very expensive.
Very expensive. Right?
There were no pill mills here. Although I was in Florida. When did the pill mills stop?
2000. I'm going to say 8 or 9 or something.
Yeah, I was in prime time Delray in 99, in 2001.
Oh, so
2001, I was in treatment in Delray, but I didn't consider going and finding pills.
Yeah.
Like it didn't, because I was a heroin addict. It didn't occur to me that pills would get the job done. And also, like, I think I felt too unsafe to be fucking getting strung out on my own in Florida while I'm in treatment. That didn't seem like the good move to me.
Yeah, that's a weird thing about Florida. As beautiful as like the beaches and how scenic it is, like the shady part of it, it's like they'll feed you to the fucking gators out there.
Well, also, like, I was young and it was scary, you know. I was there to get well. Like, I just wanted to become a stoner again. Like, I wasn't looking to become an oxy addict when I was in Florida. But so you've gone from kid who's enjoying his, you know, what does your mom know at this point?
My mom knows that she can't trust me or believe me, and that all I do is lie and ask for money. And but she was, my mother was quite the enabler at the time, and you know, she was still. My mom had her struggles for a long time too, and
what were her struggles? Lots
of cocaine, lots of drinking, and
did you ever do coke with your mom?
No,
thank God.
No. One time
that's a yet.
One time that's it. That is a yet. Me and my mom just fucking getting an 8-ball, and yeah, no. So we had gotten stuff for each other before, but never like, here's a rail, Mom. But she would like give me pills. But I will tell you one cool story. This is before any addiction stuff. My mom was managing Island Records recording studio in Miami. This was probably 1995. And she called me and she was like, Jason, I will never ask you for this ever again, but U2's recording in here and they can't find any weed. Can you get us some? So I said, I absolutely can. So I got, I think, like an ounce of weed and brought it down there, and then my mom was the middleman between me and U2 getting some.
Was it Octung Baby?
No, it was the one. I think it was the one before. This was 95, so I don't know. Whatever.
95. What was the?
They were recording in 95, so.
Yeah, that's crazy. Did you meet him?
Yeah, I got to bring it in.
Did you get high with U2?
I didn't get high, no, but I brought it to they opened up the studio door and just kind of, I forgot the guy's name, but the guy who's very like blonde, Aryan looking one with the glasses.
Yeah, Adam, I think.
Yes, Adam. He was the one who opened the door and I gave it to him, and that was it.
Fantastic. Did he do the Zig Heil for you?
No.
On your way out?
No.
So, and did you ever buy Coke for your mom? Maybe. That's a
maybe.
yes.
That's a maybe.
That's a yes.
That's a no. I would tell you if I did.
Did your mom ever buy you Coke?
Yes, but like middleman stuff. Like, hey, I really need to get some. Like
for my clients.
Yes.
Blah blah blah. And your mom, it's different. Your mom's in the industry,
right?
Like morality is out. It's a currency of rock and roll.
Yeah.
It's part of doing business.
And then she went from working, the music side of it to the comedy world. So she was working in. Her boss was managing like Cat Williams and Mike Epps and stuff. So, she was always very well connected as well.
So does she start to see it on you? You're fucking, and also how, I mean, if you're shooting oxys, like chances are it's pretty bad.
Yeah. So I get another job in a nightclub, which is this club in Miami called Nocturnal, which is downtown Miami. It's right next door, or 2 doors down from another club called Club Space, they're both notorious. And they are notorious because they have 24-hour liquor license. And once the sun comes up, they move the parties to the rooftop. And they would have parties that would start at like 7 a.m. on Monday. So you could imagine the kind of, you're getting a lot of drug dealers. You're getting a lot of people who are working at like the strip clubs. They get off work, they go here. And then it's just a whole new level of crazy. And I'm doing sound and lights and starting to take ecstasy at work. And it's just, and in my mind, I'm now a pro, right? Like this.
Well, you are. You're making money. You're doing sounds and lights. You're taking ecstasy at work. Yeah. And you're shooting at the time. I'm shooting pills at the time. Maybe not. I'm definitely not shooting pills every time. Okay.
Because, I'm snorting them at work. I'm a gentleman. So,
And is it almost affordable still or no?
Well, affordable to. So I was married at the time. And
when did you get married?
2008.
Were you high when you got married?
Fuck yes.
Was she?
No.
How bad were you?
I was terrible. I feel bad about the whole thing.
And she didn't know.
She knew.
What did she know?
She knew that I was an addict, but I would just tell her that I was clean all the time. It was just one of those things like, no, I'm just tired. No, it's a nightclub. They don't pay me every week. I wasn't bringing home any money. I was just a fucking shitbag. And, it was, I was just a total shitbag.
And you're around all these, and you're around all this music, and you're around the music business.
Yeah.
Is there recovery showing up all over the place? Because everybody's in and out of treatment and in and out of meetings. Like, had anybody been like, Jason, you need to go to a fucking meeting?
The guy who got me the job, oddly enough, at the club, who's still a dear friend of mine, Davy Jones. He lives out in Alaska now. He was one of the...
Not Davy Jones of the Monkees.
Not Davy Jones of the Monkees or the Locker, but he's
Or, David Bowie's real name was David Jones.
That's right.
Anyway, keep going.
I don't think it's him. I don't think so.
Keep going.
But so he got me the job at this place, and he was just getting into recovery himself there. And he would take me sometimes. We'd go and whatever, tweak the speakers and check the sound systems during like the off hours during the day. And he would just, now I know what he was doing. He'd be like, man, there's this really cool meeting on the way home. I think I might want to stop, but not unless you want to go. And I just, what the fuck do I need to go to a meeting for? I'm maintaining.
You're like, pull over. I need to take a shot of these oxys.
Right. Or throw up.
Yeah. Or throw up.
So he is, he's talking about it. My mom is starting to ask her friends who are in recovery about like what she should do about me, just because she's seeing a change in me that's like, I'm nodding out all the time. I'm just maintaining enough to go to work. I'm still borrowing money. I'm not paying, I'm not contributing to my household at all. But I have some friends from the street, from like the hardcore scene, who had gotten clean and like pretty fucking like, I wouldn't say a knuckle dragger, but definitely not the kind of guy who you'd want to be on their bad side, right? Like,
what's a knuckle dragger?
Like a fucking like a sort of thug,
right?
Like, tough guy. This friend of mine.
What makes them knuckle draggers? Because their arms are so long, their knuckles drag.
I think that's like the caricature of it, yeah. But just like guys who would fight all the time,
sure.
just. And this friend of mine who he's not a knuckle dragger, but he was definitely always fighting, always in that crew of people that when they showed up, a lot of the other people would leave and nobody would want to fuck with these guys.
Unpredictable, scary, intimidating kind of.
Right. And I had seen a change in him. And I didn't know if it was like he found some new or something like that or what it was, but I talked to him and he was just like, yeah, man, like I found a new way of life and blah, blah. And I was just like, okay, well, that's good. And then another friend of mine who was a bartender at like these cool clubs out in Miami, I would offer to like to buy her a shot or something. And she'd be like, no, I don't do any of that. I don't do anything. And I'm like, oh, court mandated, of course. Right. And then find out that no, these people are in the program and they can still do. So these are people who I knew who were still people who I considered cool. You know what I mean? Like they weren't pushing anything down my throat. They had good lives. They were still very active and doing cool stuff. And then they just didn't have any need for it anymore.
Right.
I didn't know how bad some of them were to get to that point.
Right.
But just knowing that some people had found a new way.
And talk about like your deterioration after that. How quickly did it come or did it linger?
Well, when the pill mills stopped.
When did the pill mills stop?
I would say around 2009, maybe.
And how many spots were you going to? Like, how many doctors were you using?
I had like 3 or 4 doctors, one regular doctor, and then some backup doctors. But then, like I said, the community was it was everywhere and nobody saw an end to it. So it wasn't like people were hoarding. People were very much willing to say like, oh, hey, yeah, I'll give you 3 and then you give me
because everyone had thousands.
Everybody had them. It wasn't a big fucking deal. And then all of a sudden they didn't. And the community that I was telling you about, like the neighborhoods, just
folded in itself.
I mean, I say that a darkness came over it, but maybe it was just because I was getting dope sick all the time too. And it was all of a sudden now, instead of everybody, this fucking free love era of it, now it's like, well, 10 of us are going to go to Overtown, which is in Miami, and then try to go get some dope. Like, do you want to go in? And then it was just this whole, that same culture that used to like look out for each other are now ripping each other off. Because people have habits now. And
how did you find out that it was the end of the pill mill era? Like you're hearing all these news reports, or do you just show up one day?
I showed up one day and the fucking door was locked and there was a phone number that just gave the number to another doctor. And then I called that doctor and he's like, oh, I'm not taking any more patients. And then
you're like, fucking hell.
I mean, it's just terror. Like I was just,
No, it's making me nervous just to hear about it.
Like my pits are sweating now just thinking about it. Like I could still remember walking up the stairs thinking like everything's going to be cool in 15 minutes.
Yeah.
Just wait 15 minutes and then going and pulling that fucking door.
And it not open. But in that period, was there ever a time where you couldn't get something, or did you ever get sick?
Barely.
Right. It's a totally different experience.
Right.
Everything is super accessible and super cheap and like not dangerous.
Right.
I can't even imagine it.
Yeah. And then it became very dangerous and very spotty and iffy, and people are ripping each other off. And then the pills went from $5 to $12, it seemed like overnight. And then they just kept rising and rising and getting harder to get. And then
obviously some people had stashed them away.
Right.
Preparing for this day.
Or had legitimate doctors that they were getting them from.
Right. Yeah. But there had to have been so many stores of pills if thousands are going out on a daily basis for many, many years. And then all of a sudden they're not available anymore. And then how quickly do you turn to heroin, or how accessible were pills at that point?
So I was still paying the high prices just because heroin in Broward County, Florida wasn't that easy to get at that time, or I just didn't know the right people at that time. That came a little bit later. So I was just paying like the gouged prices for quite some time.
Sure.
And
you also knew what you were going to get. You knew exactly like, I need this and they're going to have it and I'm willing to pay this money because I'm sick.
Right. And people are ripping each other off a lot. So I knew that there was a risk involved if I was going to get heroin, that it wasn't going to be real.
Right. Were there a lot of pressed pills or what you could
No,
tell?
this was before pressed
Right.
pills.
So heroin, you never know what you're going to get.
Right.
And pills, you're like, okay, I see what this is.
So if I was going down to Overtown, which is right around the corner from the club that I had worked at for a while, so I knew some of the dope boys because they were security guards.
Right.
Every now and then I would use that, but I wasn't driving, so I'd have to get like a few people to go down there and get it. But then they didn't like me bringing a lot of people, and it was just so fucking complicated. You know, I'm just like, or I could just pay fucking $10 or $12 for a pill up here, and then.
What about Opalaka?
Same area, like it
was Opalaka a heroin stronghold?
Oh, it was like the whole like Alibaba thing in Opalaka, but I didn't really.
What's that?
It was this area in Opalaka. Like there's lore about it. I had never personally gone, but you just hear like Opalaka. Oh, okay, Alibaba. Like,
what is that?
I don't know if it was a storefront or if it was just like an area in Opalaka.
Because I worked at a furniture store in Delray. Okay. And we would sell glass tables. But if anything ever went wrong with a glass table, they would send us down to Opalaka to get a new piece of glass.
Okay.
And I would travel with this ex-heroin addict and he'd be like, yo, it's fire in Opalaka, blah, blah, blah. And I every time we went down there, I'd be like, kind of looking around, but I would never do anything. But I was like this legend of Opalaka, and it sounds like it's real.
Yeah, the legendary areas out there. If you've ever watched The First 48,
I don't think I have.
Okay, so it's a show. It's like a show on A&E where they try to solve these murders within the first 48 hours, and they're always in this area called Pork and Beans, the Pork and Beans district in Miami, and.
Do they have good deals on pork and beans?
I don't know, but they have good deals on heroin.
Right.
So me and a friend, one of the guys who I met in treatment, who I ended up like hooking up with and, you know, running with for a little while, we're down there and we get some dope and I shoot up and I fall out. Like it wasn't like a dead OD, but it was one of those like I was out and I wake up to him pulling me out of his car. He was going to drop me off on the side of the road in the fucking Pork and Beans district in Miami. And like,
that's a true friend.
It is, but to his credit, he did like pour ice water on my crotch because when I woke up, I was like, what the fuck? What's going on? And he was like, dude, you were fucking falling out. I was like, were you just, he's like, no, I was going to take you out here and punch you a few times and make sure you're okay. So
was it tar or powder?
It was powder. I never had tar.
So it was powder and you're shooting powder.
Yeah.
And how was the quality of the Miami heroin compared to the pills?
Well, that one was pretty good. It fucking got me out. And that was the other thing. Like, I didn't know with heroin, like, how much do I do? Like, so, you know, I had eventually gone to rehab enough times and met the right people. Because I went to rehab my first time in 2010. Which I had gone to first time, which I had gone to.
How old were you?
I was 30. Well, I was born in 74. So how old would I have been in 2010? I'm not a math.
You would have been 36.
Yeah. I was 36 years old the first time I went to treatment.
Which is fairly late.
I was a late bloomer.
You started doing opiates when you're like 24?
Yeah, 24, 25.
And then first time you're in treatment is 11 years later.
Yeah.
It's a pretty good run.
Thank you.
How many days do you think you missed between?
Not a whole lot. I mean, there was some, like towards the end, I think that I was as sick as many days as I was using towards the tail end of it when I was just nickel and diming and, you know, couldn't hold it together. But at this point, I'm using probably every day, maybe the odd day or two where I can't get anything, where I'm sick for like a couple of days, but no more than a couple days.
How did you decide you needed to go?
I had gotten some subs from a doctor at one point and tried to just sort of cold turkey it on my own. Well, not cold turkey it, but you know, do the sub thing on my own. But I just didn't, you know, I figured that was the solution, right? All I needed was something that was going to make me stop being physically addicted to. So I didn't really understand all the other stuff that went along with it.
Do you think if the pill mills had stayed open, you wouldn't have needed to kick?
Good question. it definitely made me reevaluate things. Like when the whole, you have a system that's sort of working, and once that system's gone and you get to reflect on, you know, everything, your life changing and it not being that easy anymore, that definitely made me put a lot of things into perspective.
Well, there's also much more danger in scoring,
right,
than going to the doctor's office and being like, I'll take 100 oxys, please.
Yeah.
You know, going to score dope is way more dangerous. Getting beat sucks.
Yes.
Prices not being good, quality not being good. It's not as sustainable.
Right.
And it's funny, like, that's the only argument against decriminalization that I can think of, is like the barrier to like the pain in the ass it is to get heroin probably gets people out of heroin more often than people like care to admit.
Right. Yeah.
Do you agree with that? You're a professional.
I agree with that 100%. Like, but between, you know, that and
I'm not against decriminalization. I'm just thinking about your situation. You had all this access to unlimited, clean, fucking high-end opiates.
Yeah.
And you kept using them, and the only thing that stopped you is when they took away that access, basically.
Right. And I mean, I was still I was becoming a scumbag. You know, I was definitely becoming more criminal minded, and you know, it was that's all I really cared about was keeping it up. But it wasn't like I see those, like it was in Denmark or Sweden or something, where some people can actually just get it and go to like the safe injection.
Yeah,
Switzerland. Yeah. Like that's the kind of stuff that makes me wonder. Like if I had that, would it be different? Or do I like the griminess too? Am I sort of attracted to that part too? Which I think like...
That's an interesting question. I never had access. I mean, methadone is not like heroin.
No.
You know, access to methadone is not like access to heroin.
Did you do a lot of methadone?
Yeah, I did a lot of methadone.
Yeah.
A lot of methadone.
What was the highest milligram that you were on at one point?
It was either 140 or 150. And it was bad. And it was a long time. It was years.
How long was the detox off of that?
A year.
Fucking right. That's just, I'm getting sweaty again. Thinking about that.
Yeah, I can't even believe that was in my life.
Jesus Christ.
It was like, it was such a bad time. It was such a bad time.
Did you ever get any methadone from a Mexican interior designer from
Probably.
Yeah.
I mean, I think in California, I was so plugged in to the actual clinic system that like, I mean, I would get like 30 take homes at a time.
Was it like $14 a day and going and...
I think it was cheaper than that. I think it was like $30 a month, or it was like very affordable.
Wow.
Maybe it was $14. I don't remember what it cost. I just know it was much cheaper than dope, but I don't know if I had access to...
It's not as fun.
It's not, it else doesn't hit you. Like,
right.
But I also like, I wouldn't want to use in a safe injection site unless like I could smoke cigarettes and watch Seinfeld and eat ice cream and get comfortable. And like, I'd want to go home.
Yeah.
You know? But so at what point are you like, I fucking need treatment?
I think it was more or less people telling me that I needed to go to treatment over and over and over. And
who's telling you? Also, I want to hear about your scumbaggery. What kind of scumbag moves are you participating in?
Ripping people off, just doing whatever, you know, ways and means, right? So, but like specifically, I'd rip people off. I'd short them on stuff. I'd give them some fake stuff.
Can you recall a good scumbag story?
I could recall a lot of them.
All right,
they happen a little bit later on down the road, but I would sell... There was one kid in my fucking neighborhood who was just the easiest target for me to rip off. I met him in one of my 19 times in the one treatment center before going to Recovery Unplugged. I went to the same place.
19 times?
19 times.
What was it called?
Bark, Broward Addiction Recovery Center. Yeah. And listen, Bark had some amazing fucking people in there, but it was a county run place.
Yeah.
The resources were spread thin. I met my sponsor, my current day sponsor brought H&I in there, and then guest of your show and host of Hell Has an Exit, Brian, used to bring H&I meetings into there. And
Brian he's living it up at this point.
Dude, he's one of the first people that I saw speak that I was like, this guy's pretty fucking cool. I like this guy's stories. Like every time he would come and speak, and like I said, I'd been there 19 times, so I got to see him quite a few times.
The last Instagram post I saw was him and 3 porn stars in a plane with a bed in between them, and the caption was "Mile High Club, isn't my life cool?"
don't they promise you a life beyond your wildest dreams when you get clean?
He flies in planes with beds with multiple porn stars. It's quite a lifestyle, and I love Brian. It's like he constantly is pivoting between treatment and pornography, which is fantastic.
Great. If there's 2 things that you could bounce back and forth from, those are two good options.
I need to get him back on the show because we never got to dip into the pornography side.
Really?
Yeah, I mean we did like 2 hours up until he got sober.
Oh yeah.
And we never got into business or pornography, and I'm very interested in both.
I'd love to hear it. Yeah, so I go to treatment and I meet this kid.
Thank you for getting us back on track.
Just an easy target, right? Like I knew when I met him, like this kid, if I decide not to get clean this time, like I'm going to get high with this kid and I'm going to rip him off. I ripped this kid off fucking easily 50 times.
How? What was the scam?
Wax. So I would take wax or macadamia nuts and then put Ambisol on it and sell it as crack.
Why would he go back to you? What would he say? He'd be like, "My crack has a certain nutty flavor to it."
See, I had a good angle every time I would rip somebody off, as I would always make this a production of it, so it wouldn't look like it was me. You know what I mean? Like we have to drive to this place, and I got to get in the car, but you got to stay here. And I would even just use him for rides and go get high and go shoot up in the bathroom and then come back and be like, "You never showed up. What the fuck?" You know, like. Tell him that I break him off for rides and stuff like that.
What's the kid's name?
Lester was his name.
With an A at the beginning of his name?
No, Lester.
Lester. He was a Lester.
Lester.
One of the many.
He's one of the Lesters.
One of the many Lesters.
Yeah. Around. I hope he's doing okay, man. He was a good-hearted guy, and it's just one of those people who like was so nice, and then, well, I guess the reason that he's so fucking such an asshole now and maybe a little bit bristly is because I ripped him off so many times.
What, he's not kind to you anymore?
I haven't seen him.
Can we find him? Lester, if you're listening to the show, please send in an email to dopeypodcast@gmail.com because Jason definitely is dying to make an amend to you.
I am. I really am.
I believe you. I believe you. So you who sends you to bark? Your mom?
I don't know.
How bad does your mom know you've gotten?
She knows it. She knows it's bad.
You hear this chair's breaking.
It is.
It's because I sit on my side. Why do I break the chairs?
I don't know. You're not like a big guy.
I don't know. Anyway, I'm with you.
So bark. I ended up going a couple of times. Oh, this is a funny story. So the first time I go to bark, right? It's detox. We get there and they're like, it's going to be a few days. So I'm telling my mom, I'm like, "Mom, I have to get something because I can't show up to detox with nothing in my system." And this is the one time she decides to not believe me when I'm like, "Mom, I can't just show up to detox. They say it's going to be 3 days. Everything's going to be out of my system. So I have to detox with my mom and my aunt in the other room, cold turkey." Bart calls back like 3.5 days later. I go, I'm still sick as fuck. And they have me pee and there's nothing in your system. We can't take you into detox. So that was the one time where I was like, "Mom, I seriously need something in my system so I could get into detox." Because I wanted to go. I didn't know that I wanted to get clean forever. But right. I wanted to give it a shot because I will say, at least let's say the first 15 times I went to treatment, I had the hope that I was going to get clean. Like I went in with laser focus and paid attention in groups and did everything I was supposed to do and really wanted to get clean. But I heard Jake the Snake Roberts on a podcast say this one time, and I was like, this is exactly how I feel. Like my disease lets me go into treatment, be the fucking star pupil or whatever, do all the work, and then when I hit the door, the disease will say, "Let's get one more, and then you could start this thing." And that one more lasted 7 years for me.
At what point was that? As when you came out of the first one?
So the first time I was in treatment, I met somebody who told me about kratom. And then he's like, dude, it's just like an opiate. You could take it and it's not addictive and all this stuff. So then that was my.
So you leave treatment and you're like, you go get kratom.
I go get kratom and I'm living in halfway with
and everybody's taking kratom.
It wasn't, this was before it took off. We had to go to like a specialty store, like a specialty tea shop that was like an hour away. And I had my mom take me. And I'd lie and be like, oh yeah, the therapist says this is a really good thing that you could take and it takes away the cravings and all that shit. But that would be the thing that I would do is I'd go in.
I wouldn't be surprised if back then people did say that though.
Yeah, I had never heard it from any professional, just for people that I was in treatment with.
Right.
But to me, it was like it was taking the edge off for a good hour. And then I get that warm, it just gave me just enough of a taste to want to go get more every time. So within, every time I would do it. So this time that I got clean, I had, after like, I think 35 days is the longest I had ever been clean before this time. Before
you had the longest you had ever had was 35 days, and that's no kratom, or with kratom.
With kratom. Yeah.
So you had nothing. You never had any.
Yeah.
So every time you'd come out and you'd be fucking. I'm not saying that people out there who are on kratom aren't in recovery if they want to claim recovery.
But I know, yeah, I'm
saying you're totally abstinent right now,
right?
So if you took kratom right now, would you consider it a relapse?
Fuck yeah!
All right. I mean, and there's no judgment. It's everyone has to work their own fucking program.
Yeah, I'm a complete abstinence based treatment guy.
And you're a 12-step guy.
12-step guy, yeah.
So talk us through the next 19.
Okay.
Like what the fuck? Like and like. Because I keep going back to your mother because I blame parents for kids' addictions.
She's going to listen to this.
Listen, what's her name?
Nancy Mraz.
That was my mom's name too.
Oh.
Nancy, I don't really blame you, but you did open the door here and you did fucking enable him a lot.
You did work for Doc McGee.
Yeah, you're smuggling weed, fucking copping coke off your son, giving him money, one last run.
Letting him buy fucking...
What else?
Bring to you too.
Yeah, you're having your son, but listen, I can't put myself in your shoes, Nancy. I can't. So I apologize for blaming you at all. But I do think it's probably mostly your fault and your ex-husband, because he was a total too. Now, all right, Jason. Okay. So you're in and out of, you're all fucked up. Yeah. Where are you living in those 19 treatment stints?
I'd go to treatment. I'd live in some halfway house for a little while, and then I'd always end up back staying with my mom. And she's, I hemorrhaged my mom out of a lot of any money that she had. She's living in a studio apartment in Fort Lauderdale at this point, and just letting me stay on the couch. But then if I'm getting fucked up, and she doesn't want me in the house, so I'm either staying with some friends who I could use with for a little while, just bouncing around.
So would you say, like, I'm joking when I blamed your mom, but it was a codependent enabling kind of situation?
A lot of enabling, yeah.
And she would see it, and she didn't know what to do, though.
She didn't know what to do, and she didn't want me to die. So I think a lot of it was, preservation of her son. Like, she didn't...
Harm reduction. How do I keep this kid alive?
Right.
Because hopefully he catches some hope.
Right.
At some point.
And she would try to steer me in the right direction, because she had a lot of friends who'd gotten clean and, would always be supportive when I was doing the right thing. But sometimes she just listened to too much of my bullshit, and accepted it.
She wanted to believe.
She did want to believe. And, but I'm the type of addict who I love to nod out while I'm standing. Like, I'll try to stand up, and like I'd be looking in the refrigerator for something to eat, and she'd be like, Jason, I'm like, I'm just looking for something to eat, man. Next thing I know, I'm falling over. I would do that a lot, like standing up and then fucking nod out and fall down.
That must have been some serious that you had that kind of, like, you could use for that long, and still be nodding out all over the place. Because that's when I started getting like heroin. So briefly going into like let's say the first 19 times in treatment, it was very much like Shawshank Redemption. I went in with a pill habit and learned how to be a junkie in rehab. So I would meet people
who were talking about like robbing pharmacies and fucking boosting and you know, just ways to maintain their addiction. And at first it baffled me when somebody was like, oh yeah, this is my 5th or 6th time in here. I'd be like, 5 or 6 times? Why do you keep coming back? Like, I didn't understand. I'm like, you're here in rehab. Like, you came before. Why are you back here? You know, I was very naive to that. And then, you know, once I started meeting people in detox and then meeting up with people outside of there, like, I never knew about. So my one scam that I did know how to do, which is pretty low end, was I would go to the grocery store Publix, which we have in South Florida. And I would go to all the Publixes in the areas and get the receipts that people would leave in the shopping carts. And then I would go back, find the item, and then bring it up to the
That's an amazing scam.
Customer service counter. And then, because the first time I did it, I was fucking starting to get a little sick, right? And then I went to the Publix by my mom's house.
Did you come up with this idea yourself?
Yeah, first time.
That's
the first
amazing.
time I did it. So I saw a receipt.
You're a real innovator.
Yeah,
I've never even heard of this scam before.
So it was for like a 12-pack of Bud Light in a can, and it was just enough that I could get a pill of fucking oxy.
So you're like kicking dirt, and
So
you're like,
I'm a little nervous. I'm a little nervous.
Well, where did you? Does the receipt just blow into your hands? Like, how do you?
So
find
it's
it?
just like when you pick up, you know, the shopping cart, people leave their receipts in there.
Sure.
So it was just there as a fucking gift from God. I saw it.
It was God's will.
Yeah, it was God's will. It was a receipt for like $12.99 or something, which was enough for me to get an oxy. And I was like, shit. So I just have to sort of blend in a little bit, not look like a
backwards,
junkie. No, put on like a nice shirt. So I came up with the whole system for this later. But so I went very nervously. I got the 12-pack and I went right up to the customer service counter and just, you know, with all the confidence in the world, said, I just got this. My wife said she already bought some. And they looked and they said, oh, you did just buy this. Okay. And they gave me the cash. And I was like, fucking A. So then you're
like, I'm the smartest person.
I was the smartest person in the world. And then so I just developed the system. I would go to all the Publix around the area and find all the receipts on the floor. So it had to be debit or cash. And then it got to the point that I would learn what the little abbreviations of the things were. And I would only do bigger systems or bigger items.
Ticket items.
Yeah, like laundry detergent.
Sirloin steak.
Yeah. Well, steak was hard because it was by weight, and then it would have
you'd have to match it up,
and it didn't.
So, what were your favorite items to return?
Detergent. Detergent was always
liquid gold.
Liquid gold. Yeah. Yeah, stuff like that.
But you also need to go to so many supermarkets because you can't be doing that shit in the same one.
It was a system. So I would go around and collect and then go work outside all around like Dade and Broward County and then do it. I got popped a couple of times.
How? Tell me about that.
They would just say like, we saw you on camera walk in, like, and they would give me a trespassing warning. So I started getting a little brazen and thinking that the grocery stores were just my fucking playground.
Your bank machine.
Yeah. So what I would also do was I would go and they had these little boxes of wine that were like single serve, like this big. I don't know, 16 ounces, 18 ounces.
Like a glass of wine in a box.
More than a glass, probably like 2.5 glasses.
Carafe in a box.
But yeah. But I would go and I would twist it and put my head in the freezer and go and fucking chug them.
That's serious alcoholism.
So I was doing that while I was drinking on the job. So I would start going around and doing that while I'm supposedly, you know, conducting business.
Stuff. Right.
And then
I got
busted for that a couple of times too.
That must be a much worse bust.
That is, because that's shoplifting. However, as I learned when they called the cops one time on me, that I didn't take anything out of the store. So
what happened?
I just got trespassed.
So you can go to in Dopey Nation, please don't do this. But you can go to a supermarket, drink in the supermarket, and if you get busted, you're not going to get anything besides a trespass.
And I knew I would not drink it in plain sight of the camera. I would stick my head inside the big freezer, like where they keep the pizzas, and fucking chug it and then just throw the thing in there. And then
I think I have this theory that nowadays security in stores is non-existent.
Right.
Like you could go fucking, and again, Dopey Nation, don't do this. It's a good thing they don't sell heroin in the supermarket.
Right.
But
kratom.
Yeah. Do they sell kratom in the supermarket?
Well, not supermarkets, but like bodegas and stuff, but that's different.
I mean, imagine if they sold extracts of kratom in the supermarket. You could take shots in the fridge and throw the shit in the fridge.
Christ, I never would have found.
You never would have left.
Recovery.
You would have lived in the fruit and vegetable section. But so fucking, if you're going to return something,
right?
The only way that you wouldn't get away with it is if they saw you come into the store.
Yeah, or if I hit the store too much, they would just look at me and they would take a long time. Like some stores, like if it was the same people and they saw me come back like a few times, like they would try to make me nervous by making me wait. But I would just be like, I'm just going to stay here. Like there's nothing, I know that the worst they could do for me is trespass me at that point.
No, that is a classic scam.
Yeah.
What other classic scams were you working at the time?
Towards the end, on my last run, I started doing the Home Depot boosting. So people would ask me sometimes like, hey, are you flagged at Home Depot when I go into treatment? You know, because you'd get the people like that you might go use with and stuff, or the people who are trying to stay clean.
So you'd be useful to them because you weren't flagged.
I would, because I wasn't flagged. I am now. But I wasn't flagged at Home Depot.
I'm not flagged
at the time.
I could be very useful
you
at
could
detox right about now.
And then you would find a group of like 10 people and they would go in and boost the stuff and, you know, through the lawn and garden section, like shove it out. And then I would be able to bring it in and then return it, get the...
So it's a whole club.
Yeah. Get the
How many people you need for this?
Two or three. Two, ideally. So then you could have more money for dope, but you could get more stuff at the more people that you have. But then...
What kind of items would you be returning?
They were like backsplashes. But they looked like they were metallic. They weren't metallic, but they looked metallic. So they were long and flat and expensive. So you could push them out under the fence, and then I would bring them back in. You would get a gift card, and then bring them to a pawn shop. Some pawn shops would give you 75%, some would give you 50%, and then you would have the cash to go get high.
That sounds like a good scam. And how much money could you get out of a Home Depot scam?
Fuck, I don't remember offhand, but it was enough to, like, you know, if you got one good run in, we would probably do like 3 a day, and it would keep you high for that day plus the morning to go to the next one until you would
How'd you get busted?
I think I just went too many times because there was a system that you had to have. Like you could only go so many times and then you would have to wait. Like I don't remember. It didn't seem terribly long, like 48 hours. I don't remember what it was. I'm sure somebody on here could.
Well, it's weird because when Jonas PVC came on the show,
right,
his show was like half of it was just stealing,
boosting,
and he's
a fucking pro.
Everybody loved Jonas on the show, but no one sent in any boosting stories. So Dopey Nation, if you're flagged at Home Depot, please send in an email or voicemail, dopeypodcast@gmail.com. I used to just steal, I would steal food.
Yeah.
And in Florida, it was my favorite thing is when I was in, halfway in Florida, we'd go to, I think, Winn-Dixie.
Yeah.
And we'd have a certain amount of money, like that. I think, your parents would give you your so I would always go in there and they'd steal coffee. Like I would wear cargo pants and steal Starbucks coffee in my bottom pants, but I would never sell them. I would just have them and brag about the luxurious life I had.
Yeah.
And then my favorite thing was very stupid and it has nothing really to do with this, but the whole rehab would go to Winn-Dixie to go shopping together, or the building that we lived in. And I'd walk around the building, and I would see somebody in rehab and I'd go, "Oh, Jason, it's been so long." And I'd do this whole dumb thing and it would be very stupid, but that's just how I am.
Yeah, to have fun.
But my big stealing thing in my life was stealing. I never stole. I only stole I never stole it and sold it. I would just steal it and keep it. And I would steal records when I was a kid. And then when I was older, I would steal food because I wouldn't have money for food.
Right.
And I got banned from all the stores in this neighborhood.
Yeah.
Everyone. And I would just be stealing like cookies and cereal and like ice cream.
Junky food.
Yeah. But I think that Win Dixie, or was it Public scam is fantastic.
It was good, and it kept me going for a long time.
Fantastic.
Because I would borrow my mom's car and just, I'd be like, oh, I'm gonna go look for a job today. So I'd wear like a nice shirt, and I would just fucking do that and make enough money to stay high for that. That kept me going for quite some time.
I met some junkie in a rehab out here, and his big scam was he would take a shopping cart, go to the supermarket on Long Island, fill it up with baby formula, like fill the whole thing and just run out of there and run the supermarket cart, the shopping cart to the bodega and just sell them.
Wow.
And he was crazy, that guy. That was the first guy I shot up with was that guy.
Oh, wow.
From rehab. We left rehab to go shoot up. And
that's pretty brazen.
Yeah,
I was never that brazen.
Me neither.
I had to have like a...
He was fucking real. I wonder what happened to that guy. He had a thick Long Island accent. He was very good looking. And he was fucking like notorious. I wonder what happened to him.
The boosting thing, it's just like there's a level to it. And I would say that the Publix receipts was like
it was manageable.
It was manageable.
And drinking wine in the freezer.
Low risk. God, I taste it now that I'm talking about it. Because I would just drink so much to like try to not be sick, but it didn't work because it would make me feel more sick. But I would just keep on drinking and drinking and drinking.
Well, it's free wine in the supermarket before you got paid.
Yeah, exactly.
How bad of an alcoholic were you at that point?
I could drink. I would drink more. Like, I like to drink, but I don't think it was ever to the point like the opiates got me.
It was a take it or leave it thing.
There was a point though. One of my very best friends of all time, who has since passed, David Menashe. He was just one of those friends. If I was doing okay, he would let me stay with him. But I couldn't drink. I couldn't do still. You know what I mean? I had to keep shit straight there. And I drank mouthwash at his house a couple of times. And
right.
Like, that's when I knew, like, God,
you have a serious problem.
I have a lot of fucking problems. Like, it's not just the opiates. Like, I need something. But, he's the kind of friend, like, I came home one night. He's like mowing the lawn, shit that I said I'd be doing if he let me stay at his house. And I came home after partying one night, and he saw me, and I was all fucked up, and he just fucking knocked me out. But then,
like with his hands?
Oh yeah, he just popped me and knocked. I don't know how many times he had to punch me, but he laid me out. And then next thing I know, he's like cleaning me up in the bathtub and telling me that he loves me and he just wants the best for me, like a real good friend, And
how did he die?
Brain cancer.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So he wrote a book before he died because he was a teacher. He taught AP, like AP English. So most of his kids went on to be pretty successful. So he wrote this book called The Priority List. They were going to turn it into a film, and Steve Carell was going to play him in the movie, but it just, we were talking about production stuff that just kind of falls on the wayside, and it never happened. But, he wrote a book, and he just started deteriorating, and I was still fucking dope fiending him because he got the money from his book and everything, and he would still give me money all the time. And, it was really sad because he was in hospice, and I'd still show up and just be like, "Hey, man, can I get a couple more bucks?" Just as he's like dying, and but he was showing him like a indirect amends that I could get clean. Like a lot of nights where I struggled, like his memory kept me strong quite a bit.
Yeah, because you had guilt and also love for him.
Yeah.
Was there ever any hospice fentanyl patches, fentanyl lollipops?
No, his family was all around his house there, and I remember like the hospice doctor came and had, I don't know what the pills were, but he was like, "Oh, just put this down the toilet, let the fish get high, and put it to the side." And my eyes were just on that fucking bottle, and like waiting for everybody else to leave the room, but nobody left the room, so. Right. I didn't take it, but yeah.
Let the fish get high.
Let the fish get high. I was like, I need to get fucking high.
So tell us about the 18th time in Bark.
The 18th time in Bark.
Or the 19th. Whichever has
18th and 19th were, I was model client. all those other times, but 18 and 19, I was looking for people to get high with and to take out. And
So you almost go in there knowing that you're going to find a fresh fish kind of thing.
yes, yeah, the last couple of times. And my habit at this time is, so I have a cocktail that I like to do at this point, and it is a cap of heroin.
What's a cap?
Like a capsule. Like that's what we were getting in Broward County at the time.
You were getting powder in capsule form.
Yeah, like China White.
Why would they put them in capsules?
I don't know.
All right, keep
it's just easy to maybe easier than bagging.
I never knew that that's what a cap was. I always
Yeah.
imagined it was like a bottle cap.
No, like when they'd call like pot, like you get lids of marijuana. No, but they were actually capsules.
Okay.
So I do a cap of heroin. If I could get it, a quarter or like 2 milligrams of it dilaudid, just so you get that little rush.
How often were you getting dilaudid?
Pretty often.
Because Florida, there was still like throwback to pill days.
Yeah.
All right.
Molly,
Mm.
and then liquid Benadryl. And then crack if I
Hold up. Where would the Molly come from?
So a friend of mine who I know is, I think, clean at this point. He was a graffiti artist who I grew up skating and writing graffiti with. His name is Chrome, MSG. Shout out to the MSG crew. He had a tattoo shop right around the corner from my mom's place that started out as a tattoo shop and then just turned into a complete shooting gallery.
Right.
And he had Molly. And I went on I think for at least...
Was it liquid?
No, it was the rocks. I think I did Molly just about every day for like a year.
Wow.
So
would you shoot it?
Oh, fuck yeah.
So you were shooting Molly with... How often would you get this cocktail together?
As often as possible.
But how often
at
is
least once a week, I would have the full cocktail.
How did you build this cocktail up?
Just fucking...
Trial and error?
Trial and error. And
liquid Benadryl?
Liquid Benadryl.
How did liquid Benadryl emerge?
I was in the hospital one time for abscesses. And
I feel like I'm missing a lot of good stuff. What were you in the hospital for abscess? When was that?
That was probably maybe like 2012. I'm working in phone rooms. I'm shooting up.
Did you ever see the movie The Telemarketers?
The documentary?
Yeah.
Yes.
It's all, you're like one of those guys.
I was one of those guys. So we don't have needle exchanges in South Florida. So I'm using dirty needles all the time, my own dirty needles. And I'm actually going to detox because I know there's a place where people would leave crack stems and dirty needles. So I would go and get crack stems and dirty
That was your needle exchange.
That was my needle exchange.
Did you get fucking Hep C?
Oh yeah, I had Hep C, yeah.
Did they get rid of it?
Yes.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So I was very liberal with using dirty needles, and at one point,
your grimy, desolate place. It really is well.
Yeah.
You really go down there. We can really mine this thing.
Man, I would go there, and then I would I was shooting a lot of crack too at the time. And I couldn't find like lemon juice or whatever, so I used like balsamic vinegar that my mom had to break the crack down. And that can't be that good for you. I don't know. So it was during
I'm sure you would taste it when you shot it.
Oh yeah.
This crack is a nutty note of balsamic to it.
A little lily of the valley in there. So
and poor Lester's shooting the macadamia with Ambisol.
He's trying. Yeah.
Do you think he ever shot the macadamia with Ambisol?
No, he was trying to smoke it. He was trying to smoke the crack. He wasn't. He didn't. At that point, he wasn't shooting crack like I was shooting crack because the first time I ever...
Well, that's because all he had was nuts.
Yeah, exactly. You can't shoot macadamia nuts in Ambisol.
Can you?
But I don't think
Dopey Nation, if you've ever shot a macadamia nut, please send in an email or voicemail.
That's how that's how I thought like my fake shit was so good is I'd put Ambisol on it, so if he tasted it, it would give him a little...
Bitter.
The numbing.
Right,
right. Yeah, I'm thinking ahead.
Yeah, and the macadamia has that certain crack consistency.
Yeah.
So you're all abscessed out because all you shoot is with dirty.
All I'm shooting is with dirty needles. So I'm at work.
Your mom's like, "Listen, Funkadelics in the studio. Could you get an 8-ball of coke for the band?"
No. So it was this time I was like, I had shot with the same needle, my veins are running out. So I'm shooting up all over the place.
Where are you hitting?
So I'm hitting, and I have one spot in my ditch here my foot,
Your ditch, you point to your elbow as the ditch?
my ditch.
Yes. I never even heard ditch.
Oh, yeah.
I've been doing a podcast about heroin addiction for 9 years and never heard that.
That might be a tattoo term, like when you get tattooed there in the ditch. So at that point, I'm shooting there, anywhere on my hands or arms, my feet.
Yeah.
I'm not getting into the nether regions.
The Netherlands, nor the neck.
Not yet. Or the forehead, but that came later.
Really?
Yeah.
Forehead?
Yeah. So I infect myself in 4 different places, and I have abscesses on my arm, my leg, my foot.
Yes.
And I'm walking with a limp, and my mom's like, "What the fuck is the matter with you?" And I'm just like, "I went skate." She's like, "You haven't gone skating in fucking years. What are you talking about?" So I finally go to the doctor.
She's like, "I've got Billy Joel in Studio B. He's got a hankering for some liquid Benadryl."
So I go into the hospital in Broward General, and I'm talking to this doctor, and he sees what's happening, and
you must be in such bad shape.
I'm in fucking terrible shape. I'll show you some before pictures of myself. The doctor, we talk for like a half hour because he's kind of feeling me out. He's asking me a bunch of questions and looking, and he closes the door, and he's just like, "Man, what the hell is wrong with you?" I'm like, "I don't know. I'm fucking like shooting fucking crack." And he was like, "Because if I'm talking to you, like, you seem like a sensible person.
Right.
Like, if you were to fall over with that thing on your arm and it got into your bloodstream, you'd be dead. Like, if you would have waited another couple days, like, you might have to lose your arm."
Right.
And he's like, "You just kind of stroll in here like, oh yeah, fucking A, So he puts me in, and he was like, "I'm going to make sure you're comfortable here, because I know that if you fucking leave, like, you're just going to go back to this shit. So I'm going to do what I can to keep you comfortable here. But dude, get your fucking shit together." I don't remember verbatim if that's what he says, but I felt like I was getting like talked to by, a parent or a teacher.
Right.
So they give me the liquid Benadryl, and that opened up a whole nother fucking world.
Liquid Benadryl.
Yes.
I am a connoisseur of Benadryl.
Okay.
But I've never taken enough to really have it be fun at all.
Have you ever taken an IV?
No, I've never.
That's why.
Yeah. So here, break it down, liquid Benadryl.
So while I'm, in the hospital for my abscesses.
Here, come closer. Get in the frame. Make yourself comfortable.
In the hospital because of my abscesses, they're giving me morphine, and I tell them that it itches. So then they pushed it with liquid Benadryl, and it made the rush. Have you ever shot Dilaudid before?
No.
Okay. So there was this rush to it.
To Dilaudid.
Yeah. And this made that feel like the liquid Benadryl gave me that rush.
Morphine plus liquid Benadryl equals almost like Dilaudid.
Somewhat. I mean, it gives you this rush that it's really hard to, and I'm not trying to make it seem more attractive to anybody, but this is just this is the kind of stuff that I really enjoyed.
And you're like, note to self, I like liquid Benadryl, and I want that to be part of my fantasy cocktail.
Correct.
So where do you come upon liquid Benadryl after that? And what do these letters say on your knuckles?
So be it.
So be it.
Yeah.
What and why?
It's just, I got it in early recovery, and I just thought it was some cool like acceptance thing, and I heard it in the song and was just like,
what song?
It was a Blonde Redhead song.
Okay.
I don't remember which song, but yeah, they just said "so be it" in there, and I was like, well, that'll fit on my knuckles if I put a little something in between there. Some people think it either says sober or something about editing.
Sober editing.
Sober edit.
Yeah. All right. So how do you start scoring liquid Benadryl for the concoction?
Oh, I just get the liquid caps, and then I take a fingernail clipper and clip them off, and then I would just mix it in. You would have to put it directly.
So if I go to the store,
dropper.
If I go to the store and I buy Benadryl liquid caps and I nail clip it off, I could get liquid Benadryl for myself.
Yeah, but it's super thick and it fucking burns so bad.
On what? On my throat?
No,
or if I shoot it. I'm not going to shoot. I'm in recovery. I'm just saying if I want to have a little liquid Benadryl at night instead of a pill.
Oh yeah, then just get the liquid caps. And
how many? And I am sober. I'm a person in recovery. So when I take Benadryl, I'll take like a gentleman.
Right.
Take a Benadryl, and I'll sleep.
Yeah.
Now, when you're shooting liquid Benadryl, how many liquid caps are you taking?
Usually 2.
Just
with
2.
the shot. Yeah.
So your concoction is, break it down. You have a spoon.
Yeah. Spoon. Cap of heroin.
Which is powder.
Yeah.
Dump it in
2
there.
milligrams of a Dilaudid if I could get one.
Dump in some Dilaudid. How often are you getting the Dilaudid?
I'd say I had my full cocktail once a week.
Once a week. And what are you doing for money?
Working in
the call center.
Yeah, I'm working in call centers at this time, or waiting tables somewhere. I'm kind of bouncing around. Liquid Benadryl, crack, of course.
A little crack.
A little bit of crack.
Spice it up.
So then you would need some, obviously a little vinegar or lemon juice or something. And then Molly, a little top it off.
To make it a little wavy.
Yeah, get a little rush. So I was saying I was doing, my friend had a tattoo shop at the time in South Florida, old graffiti writer who I used to write with, this guy Chrome. I know he's doing okay now. So he had a tattoo shop that started off as a tattoo shop and then sort of turned into just a trap.
Did you guys call this concoction anything?
No, this was just me. This is all by myself. Like I used in solitude. But he would get me the Molly, and then I had another guy in Pompano Beach who I would get the caps from.
Shout out to Pompano.
However, one time
big dopey community in Pompano.
I bet. Yeah, Pompano's great. I got the recovery scene in Pompano is great. However, I did get a lot of drugs in Pompano.
What was the big in Pompano?
That's where I was getting. That's where I was getting caps. Like once I found like a good dealer who I didn't have to go to Overtown for. I was getting decent dope in Pompano Beach.
There's a dopey legend named Scott Wick who sent in a very revolutionary dopey email and voicemail about Flocka.
So Flocka, I didn't know what it was. Like, I remember it hitting the streets and people just fucking acting really fucking weird.
Flocka.
Yeah. That guy Lester, who I told you.
Hold on. Were you about to say something else though about...
No, I was going to go into a Flocka story. Okay. My friend Chrome called me one night and he was like, "Oh, I got some new Molly."
Do you think Lester wished his name was Chrome? Poor Lester is Lester, and then Chrome is this cool guy.
They were friends. They ended up using together. But so Lester started doing the Flocka and would tell me, like, I'd go to his house and be like, "Dude, there's cops out there." I was like, "There's no fucking cops out there." And he wasn't smoking crack. So I was like, "Well," he's like, "Dude, I don't know if I'm going crazy, but I was talking to the cops under my couch." And I was like,
"Oh boy,
you don't know if you're going crazy." But so Chrome calls me one night and he said, "Dude, I got some new Molly if you want to come over and do it." Cause he knew like I would do it immediately. And I'm used to taking like a cap, like they would come in the caps and I could take most of a cap. If it was clear or brown, I knew it was okay. But this stuff, he just gave me 2 little fucking pebbles of it, little pebbles. And he was like, "Just try it first." I was like, I could handle it. And he's like, "Just try it first." So I fucking crush it up. I shoot it up. Instantly, fucking terror. The walls started getting veins. And I just started telling him that I'm going to die. I'm going to die. So he says there was another guy in the room. He's like, "Quick, give me some fucking heroin. Let's shoot him up." So I figures that's the way to
relieve your terror.
And it did.
Heroin will always relieve terror.
It truly did. So yeah, so that was my first of 2 times doing Flocka. The second time, I went back to school for video stuff before I got clean, and I got kicked out because I was just a mess. And this kid who I was in class with was like, "Oh shit, I got some Molly for you." And I was like, "Okay, cool."
Everyone thinks it's Molly.
Yeah, I hope it's not like that stuff that I did last time. So I go into the bathroom in class and I fucking shoot up, and again, the wall.
Same thing. Same hallucination.
And I can't leave the bathroom now, and class is going on. So somebody comes in. I was like, "Get so-and-so in here." So he comes in and I was like, you gave me the wrong shit. I'm fucking dying in here. And the way the bathroom was set up, I had to walk by class if I was going to leave. So I was like, "Cause a distraction." So he went and he like caused some fucking thing. And I get into the, I have my mom's car and I get into the car and I'm too terrified to fucking drive. Like that was so it's kind of like I'm a little bit confused to what Flocka, bath salts, all this other shit was. But the way I saw people acting, like I can see how people would act fucking crazy if that's what they were getting, the stuff that I had shot up those 2 times.
It's crazy that both times you had the identical veiny hallucination.
Yeah.
Have you ever heard of somebody getting that psychosis?
No, not that particular one.
And then can you break down, like I was never, like I've only really enjoyed Benadryl in my recovery.
Right.
But I've never like stolen anything on Benadryl. I never was visited by the Hat Man.
Right.
What can you open up these kind of Benadryl myths versus realities?
Benadryl?
Yes.
What were the Benadryl myths?
The Hat Man comes to see you.
I've never heard of that.
You never heard of the Benadryl Hat Man?
No.
It's like some dark place that's very scary. It's kind of, it sounds like a similar fantasy. From what I hear, at least in meme speak,
Oh.
in meme speak,
Oh, is that like the Walmart Benadryl things, or
I'm not sure. I'm not sure, but I mean, there's that you steal on Xanax and
Right.
Benadryl, and I don't think I stole any more on Xanax, and I was on Xanax every day, lots of Xanax, and I didn't find myself stealing them. I mean, I think I stole.
I met a lot
anyway.
of people who did.
Yeah, so that's
rob a store on fucking Xanax.
Yeah, everyone says they did that. I wound up stealing anyway, but I don't think it was Xanax related.
It's chocolates.
Yeah, just cookies and stuff. And then fucking this Benadryl Hat Man, you never got some.
No, and I took a lot of IV Benadryl.
Yeah, so you would know.
I would have met the Hat Man.
So Dopey Nation, any stories about this Hat Man or benzo stealing? I'm very interested in these myths.
Yeah,
we should do a show about drug myths.
we should.
Myths versus realities. So how did you get sober? And also anybody, especially Wick, did you ever do Flocka and in the walls turn veiny? Is that a thing?
Did you? And did you ever cop from the Broward terminal, the bus terminal? That was a
Flocka spot?
That was a Flocka spot.
And Flocka, of course, means skinny girl.
Yeah. Yeah, that was, yeah, I never purposely did Flocka because it was like it was like another fucking pandemic, epidemic, whatever. It was just like the people who used to look for blues and stuff like that were all of a sudden just fucking zombies. Like the Flocka zombies, you would just see them on the street corners in Broward. I don't know if it was exclusive to South Florida.
Seems like it was.
Yeah.
Seems like Flocka was deeply concentrated in South Florida.
Yeah.
So how did you start getting your shit together?
So,
and who did you take hostage from the last time in Bark?
I would just meet people and then just, for a couple of days. Like that's where I met the people who I was doing the Home Depot shit with.
Right.
So it wasn't necessarily I was taking them hostage.
Shout out to the Home Depot crew.
Yeah, Home Depot crew. It was
shout out to
it was a good couple
SMG.
weeks. It was a good couple weeks. MSG.
Yeah, monosodium glutamate crew.
But so my last run, my grandmother passed away, my dad's mom, and she left her house in Houston to me and my cousins to sell and to split.
Wow.
So I'm nickel and diming at this time, and I'm,
That must have been very exciting.
Yeah. What, my grandmother died?
Well, the house, to be a junkie, totally fucked up and be like getting a house.
Yeah. And that weight of like, oh yeah, they're going to sell the house to like, it was probably like 2 months, but like, if like when you're dope sick and like the guy's coming right down the street, like that's how I felt for 2 months. And then I got $13,000 and decided that I'm gonna get a script of
That's how much I got for my bar mitzvah.
Was it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Anyway, keep going.
It's a good number.
Yeah.
So I got a I got some Suboxone or Subutex.
Yeah.
And then I decided to go out to New Jersey. A good friend of mine lives out there, complete normie, and knows that I'm struggling in and out and says, I could come stay at his house. And then, purposely got Subutex. So I know that there wasn't like any sort of blocker in there or anything. But I did want to get clean. I just didn't know how to get clean or stay clean.
Sure.
So I call a taxi to take me to a 12-step meeting. And then as soon as I get in the car, I just go to the taxi driver. Like, sir, I have a sensitive question for you. And he just turns around and he's like, are you looking for dope? And I said, yeah. And he takes me to a place in Trenton. And then
why in Jersey?
That's where my friend lived.
Why were you there though?
Just I needed to get out of Florida. I didn't know, it'd been so long since I'd been anywhere too. Like I hadn't left Florida in God knows how long. So
that's always the best question. I don't mean to freak you out, but do you know where I could get some heroin?
Yeah. And he was just, he was a complete pro.
Well, Trenton.
Yeah, complete pro. Just took me to the cut. I met my man Hollywood, who was helping me out. My friend said, I don't know what the fuck you're doing, but you got to get out of my house. I have a family and you clearly aren't keeping your shit together here. So he sends me home. I stay in a hotel for a couple of days and I get some shit on the streets. And I had never gotten like bundles like that before when it comes in the wrappers. And I thought I got ripped off for how little was in there.
Right.
And then it turns out I wasn't getting ripped off. It was just really fucking good dope. And I ended up overdosing and then getting Narcan and all that shit. And
in Jersey?
Yeah. I'd gotten Narcan twice, once in Florida, once in Jersey. And that was just, have you ever had to get Narcan?
No.
It is you can't explain it. It's the weirdest fucking feeling because you're just dead. And then you come to and it's like you're in a dream, right? Like everything's just fucking weird. It's surreal.
It's crazy.
And I just realized that
because it's literally reversing the process.
Yeah. And I came to a realization at that point that, it seems like people have more interest in me if I'm dying than when I'm actually alive. Because
that's interesting.
Nobody gave a fuck about me otherwise. You know what I mean? I had a lot of people who really cared about me and who just had to turn their back on me and just...
Because they gave up.
Because my sponsor, I told you, I had met my sponsor when I was going to Bark.
Mm-hmm.
I probably met him the first time I was in Bark. And he sponsored me for a couple years before I got clean. And I'm out in New Jersey and trying to get back home. And him and my mom are talking and they are essentially praying that I get locked up. Like that's their biggest hope in life for me is that I get locked up.
Right. It makes sense.
Yeah, that's their biggest hope for me. So I come home. I go to Bark one more time. I get kicked out. I think I was cheeking Suboxone or something. And then I end up just fucking, I'm middlemanning something. And I have, at one point, like a good amount of dope like I had never had before of like quality shit. And it just didn't work for me anymore. And you hear that all the time. Like something it didn't work anymore. And I felt betrayed. You know what I mean? I was like, how can this is the only thing that I've ever given my life to, and now it's not working for me anymore.
Because your tolerance was so high.
Yeah, or whatever it was, or spiritually, I'm just like at a place now that, I'm done with this. Like,
I think it's tolerance. Like, you think because, okay.
There has to be something that I can't explain about it, because there was plenty of times where all I need to do was then get more, put some fucking Benadryl in it, or whatever I need to do to boost it up a little bit.
And you found that wasn't going to happen.
Nothing was working anymore.
Okay.
It wasn't filling that thing anymore that it used to fill.
It was done.
It was done. And I didn't know exactly what it was. So I ended up, for the first time, going to a detox that was not Bark. This is a pretty good story. I'll tell you this one. So I get in, I know how to get into detoxes and stuff like this, and I'm just fucking down and out. All my shit's in like two garbage bags, all my clothes. I get to the place, so I know I drink as much fucking vodka as I could stomach and then take a little bit of a bar. So I go in and tell them, I drink fucking 4 pints of vodka a day. I take however many bars a day. You could see it's in my system. The guy tells me, we're not taking anybody who doesn't have insurance right now. And you ever have that feeling when you breathe out and you can't stop breathing out just because you're so like it's not crying, but it's almost crying, but it's
shock too.
Shock and just fucking like, really? Like I'm finally just at this point.
There's nothing left.
I'm at a bottom. Like this is an absolute bottom.
Yeah.
And the guy's like, we can't take you in. So I just I start getting my bags and getting up to walk out. And he was like, I know you've been through this process before, right? I'm like, yeah. And he's like, this is a psych hospital. I was like, I know. And I just start to walk out, and he was kind of nudging me to say that I'm going to kill myself, right. And he's just like, listen, man, I'm in recovery. Like, just have a seat for a second. And he goes and he fucking pulls whatever strings he does. And he was like, all right, we're going to take you. I've never seen that man again, but that saved my life.
That's amazing. You don't remember anything about him?
It was Fort Lauderdale Hospital. That's all I know he was doing. Intakes in June 7th of 2016. So if anybody knows who was working that shift at Fort Lauderdale Hospital, June 7th of 2016.
We have a strong Florida dopey community.
Yeah.
So June
7th,
2016. 2016.
He would have been working at Fort Lauderdale
Hospital. Nice looking fellow.
Yeah.
Older, younger.
He was probably under 50, maybe.
So he's
salt and pepper beard, receding hairline.
All right. So
I remember he kind of reminded me of the dad on Family Ties a little bit.
Michael. I don't remember his name now.
That guy.
Yes. Okay. Michael Keaton was the character's name, but that was not the actor's name.
Michael Keaton.
Right? Alex P. Keaton.
Was Michael Keaton? It could have been Michael Keaton.
I don't know. It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. The dad on Family Ties.
Yeah.
Anybody knows him, please send him my gratitude.
So then that and you realize like that this is the fucking bottom of bottoms.
Yeah, but still I meet some kid in there who's from Philly who likes Elliott Smith, and we start talking and he tells me like he doesn't know anybody out here, and I was like, I know people out here, so I'm still fucking there, but something intervened that kept me there, that I didn't go out that
You didn't take him out.
No, I wanted to. I don't know why we didn't. But anyway, my mom had a friend who worked for Richie Supa, who was one of the co-founders of Recovery Unplugged, Steven Tyler's songwriting.
Legendary Richie Supa.
The legendary Richie Supa.
Hold on, I want to say something though real quick.
Please.
It's like in that situation where you meet Elliott Smith, dude, whatever, and he wants to go score and you're like, I want to go score too.
Yeah.
And you don't. It's like, in a way, all recovery is those situations over and over and over and over and over and over until you're like, oh no, I'm not using. But that's where it starts.
That is where it starts.
Dodging all these bullets where you're like, I was going to use, but then I didn't.
And I'm sure I could have pressed him and gotten out, or he could have pressed me and gotten me out. I don't know what happened. You know, I was on Ativan and a bunch of other shit. So I'm sure I was a little dozy too.
Sure.
So anyway, I called my mom's friend at Recovery Unplugged, because they had offered me a place before, a scholarship before, but I know I could go to Bark on my own and get in and out on my own. And
You knew the deal.
I knew the deal, and I felt bad taking it if I wasn't necessarily ready.
Right.
So I didn't even know that I got in, but when they tell me that I'm being discharged and I go to sign the papers and I see Recovery Unplugged on there, I was like, oh fuck. And then somebody came with the druggy buggy and took me to Recovery Unplugged. And it's crazy because they took me to a place that used to be a phone room that I worked at back when I was using. Same room. But it was in this place in Fort Lauderdale.
So they had reclaimed one of these telemarketing offices?
Yeah, it's a very nice building in Fort Lauderdale in the right by Galleria Mall off of Sunrise Boulevard. And it's weird. Something in that area always I always felt something in that area. Like, I don't know what it is about this one little cross section here, but I love it here. And then when I went to Recovery Unplugged, day one, I spent more time with my therapist day one than I probably did in a 30-day stay at Bark. And not because, like I said, I met some amazing fucking people at Bark who worked there, but their resources are just they were spread so thin.
Sure.
And something about the Recovery Unplugged, it was different for me. It seemed like, these were music industry people I was raised around, so I felt sort of at home.
You were.
And
you're also connected through your mom.
Yeah.
And through legendary recovery supervisor Richie Supa.
Yeah. So, it was, and my detox was fucking rough.
It must have been.
It was terrible. You're
like, can I please get some liquid Benadryl?
Well,
the liquid Benadryl.
Oh, well, and when I was staying, and here's the thing, I hear some people say you can't really get clean where you're used and stuff. That's bullshit, because I could have walked out of where we were staying and within 10-minute walk gotten something.
Well, whatever they say is bullshit until you do, is real until you're like, no, I'm just going to do this.
But it was like this weird thing that came over me because I felt so terrible. And I was like, God, I could get relief right now if I just walked out these doors and just went down the street and got it. But I knew that there was something, I knew how I would feel once I couldn't come back in. And I wasn't ready to do that because I had nothing. That was a lot of my early recovery. And so recovery to this day was, I don't know what's ahead, but I just don't want to go back anymore. There's nothing to go back to. There's nothing there for me anymore. And I think a lot of my early years in trying to get clean was I wanted to be back to like the cool guy at clubs and doing this and doing that. I remember one of my first meetings that I went to, it was an AA meeting. And like I was talking about, you know, how good my life was before, and I just want to get this back. And this guy's like, listen, man, you got to move forward. And I kept on butting this guy. And he was like, man, maybe you're too smart for this program. And I was like, oh, fuck, thank you, man. And a couple of years later, I was like, oh,
that's what he meant.
That son of a bitch.
Yeah, that's all right. But it's like, that's the thing though.
Yeah.
And then from getting sober and recovery unplugged to working there, have you been there ever since?
I have.
That's
I've
crazy.
Not left. I went from PHP to IOP to OP to staying extremely close, living in there halfway, and then, you know, I started working in some restaurants, and they were pretty cool jobs too. And like it was like all my jobs getting better, all my living situations started getting better, and then the opportunity to become a tech at Recovery Unplugged came up, and it was a pay cut, but I was like, I still am to this day. Like it's a home for me, and it truly is. To, you know, you met our CEO and co-founder Andrew Sawson, who I didn't meet till after, you know, I had like a year or so.
Well, I just met him on the phone.
Yeah, but I mean, you had a meeting with him, and, you know, it's just, I don't know. I felt a home. I felt like I had a home there. And my aunt, who has since passed, once I went there and was a client there, she told my mom that she had a feeling that I was going to be there for a really long time, in like a good way. Like
psychic kind of moment.
Yeah.
Listen, I there's a great story that I know you have that I want you to tell, but I think I want to save it. Okay. I want to save it for something else.
Okay.
For the next time you come on the show.
All right.
But Recovery Unplugged is now sponsoring Dopey.
Yeah.
And we're going to do some events.
We are going to do some events.
And I talk about it on the show, but like, are there people jamming out in Recovery Unplugged? Is that like, how much of a component is music there?
So it's what I'll give you my personal experience, right? So I told you that I have a rough detox, right? My first day out of detox, I go into a group, which is usually when you talk to people, you tell a little bit of your story. And I was just like, fuck, I don't know if I could do this, you know? So the therapist is like, Jason, if you don't feel like talking right now, can you find a song that mirrors how you're feeling? And just play it for everybody. So on YouTube, we looked up Fond Farewell by Elliott Smith, pulled it up on the screen, and with the lyrics, we all watched it. And then they asked like, oh, what part sticks out the most to you? And I was just like, oh shit. Like now
it spoke to you.
It spoke to me. And then next thing I know, I'm talking with everybody. And then the group's over, and where I was just planning on sitting and
by yourself,
rocking and stuff like that, not rocking out like rock and roll, but like rocking myself to comfort with my fucking dope sickness.
Yes.
Like I'm talking to people and using music to break through. And they also do like Feel Good Fridays, which every Friday they do a concert for the clients in all of our locations. Some of them are a little bit different. Sometimes we'll do somewhat of an open mic and clients can come up and sing. Sometimes it's just a concert, but it's all interactive. And, you know, that's how they use music to break through, as they say, to the underlying causes of addiction. Because, you know, sometimes I didn't feel like communicating, but I could always find something and relate it to it, you know, like this lyric, or this is how I'm feeling. I'll play a fucking Cro-Mag song because I'm fucking angry, like, you know, and get to talk about it that way. So I think that's how it broke through to me.
Totally. And it's just about like what brings people together.
Yeah.
Like, and you felt like you could share the Elliott Smith song. And as soon as you're able to share, you're not alone.
Right.
And like, and like whatever it is, like if you're getting sober, like on the side of the road, fucking, you know, shucking bananas and it makes whatever, you know, whatever,
right.
Whatever you're doing that makes you feel less alone, that makes you feel like you have a purpose is what recovery is about. And it seems like this has a built-in component of that.
It does.
Obviously, like as I've done this show forever and I've heard more and more about different places, you just want people to find their place.
Yeah.
You know, and it's like you found yours at Recovery Unplugged.
I did.
And it's fucking sick. And I really enjoyed recording, and I appreciate you coming on. Is there anything you'd like to add before you go?
So the Kiss End of the Road documentary, which I got to work on, or is that what you don't want to talk about?
No.
Okay.
No, I want to talk about you like fishing out your fiance at a detox.
Oh. Yeah, we'll save that one for a later date.
Yes.
So yeah, the Kiss End of the Road documentary I got to work on, and that should be coming to a streaming service near you in the near future.
Who's your favorite member of Kiss?
Gene Simmons.
By far?
He was the fucking coolest. Like, I was expecting him not to be.
No Ace, no Peter.
Well, they weren't there.
No. So
Yeah.
Gene and Paul, you picked Gene.
Yeah, Gene and Paul, and they all, you know, I was with them for like a month, and like traveling on the jet with them and staying in the hotel with them, and Gene was extremely fucking kind to me, and it was a tremendous experience.
Does he keep kosher, Gene?
I believe he does.
Do you know I worked with a woman at Katz's, a waiter at Katz's for
Right.
10 years, and her son was the pilot of Kiss's plane.
Really?
Yeah.
Is he still?
I don't know,
'Cause
but up until, I don't know, 5 years ago he was.
I don't know if the current pilot
Do you know, what's the
newer.
pilot's name that you
I don't
know?
remember.
Lenny?
I don't-
Ecuadorian guy?
No. This guy was not Ecuadorian.
Not Ecuadorian?
But it's funny when you talk, like they would have soup on the plane.
Yes.
And then Gene turned to me and he's like, "We used to have hot girls on the plane. Now we have hot soup."
Good for Gene.
Yeah.
I love Gene.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Jason, anything else you'd like to share before we go?
Adam David, one of my clients for the Elsewhere program, is going to be on this coming season of The Voice, which airs February 3rd.
You're prepared with a lot of plugs.
And I'm working on a documentary with him, and he's also
He's in recovery too.
yeah, he's a alumni of Recovery Unplugged, and I'm working with him.
Adam David.
Adam David.
What is he singing on The Voice?
I don't know, but he's on. I don't know if I
Isn't
can
he
say-
singing the Aerosmith tune?
No,
The Richie Supa song?
We're recording. He's coming to Austin to record a version of that.
I think if Richie
Amazing.
Supa got into the soup business and maybe could sell some hot soup to Kiss on the plane, that could be a whole.
That'd be a full circle moment.
Richie Supa doesn't need to sell soup. He doesn't need to sell soup.
He wrote amazing.
Yeah, he wrote amazing. Thank you, Jason. Is there anything else?
I think
Toxicology.
toxicology. What was the acronym you came up with? True addicts,
loving
kindness.
True addicts, loving kindness. What's the next letter?
I don't know.
S.
Yes. See, that's why
True addicts, loving kindness,
sobriety.
What's
Or clean.
or clean toxicology? Yeah, you guys.
We'll figure that out.
You guys need another name.
Could you send a pair of socks to somebody who could figure that out if they would come up with a good acronym?
Give us an acronym for toxicology. You need socks.
Yeah.
I had socks, but I don't have them. They're not here. I don't know. Do you want a Katz's hat instead?
I'll take a Katz's hat.
All right, very good. Thank you very much, Jason.